Yes, you heard that right. A single penny from 1968, with an S mint mark, has shocked collectors, stunned auction houses, and completely rewritten the way people look at everyday change. Now, imagine this. You're digging through an old coffee can of pennies. Dusty, forgotten, left sitting for decades. To most people, it's just copper-colored clutter. But in that pile lies something extraordinary. One coin, one mistake of history, one overlooked treasure, that could change your life forever. Because this isn't just any penny. This is the 1968 S Lincoln penny. And the right one, the rare one, is worth up to $1 million. But how could a coin so small carry a story so massive? It all begins in San Francisco. The U.S. Mint was striking coins at a rapid pace during the late 1960s. The economy was booming, coin production was rushed, and mistakes began slipping through the cracks. Some pennies were struck with unusual die errors. Others carried doubled inscriptions so faint, most people never noticed. And a few, an extremely rare few, were struck in ways that make them priceless today. And here's where it gets interesting. Collectors first brushed off the 1968 S penny as ordinary. After all, millions of them were made. They filled pockets, registers, piggy banks, and penny jars across America. Nobody cared. Nobody looked twice. But then, something happened. One collector stumbled upon a strange penny. The letters on the front looked doubled, as if shadowed. "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" appeared almost ghost-like, etched in a way that seemed unreal. At first, he thought it was just wear and tear. But under a magnifying glass, he realized he had something extraordinary. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. This tiny, forgotten coin went to auction. Bidders gasped. Dealers leaned forward. Collectors whispered. And when the final hammer dropped, this little copper piece had just sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And since then, some have reached values close to $1 million. But here's the part that gives you goosebumps. Most people, even collectors, don't realize how to spot these rare 1968 S varieties. They've been hiding in plain sight for decades. Some are buried in junk drawers, some in jars of change passed down from parents and grandparents. And some are still waiting to be found in pocket change today. Think about that for a moment. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. That's where the story gets even more intense. Because the rare 1968 S penny isn't just valuable for its mint mark. It's valuable because of something called a doubled die. On the obverse, the front, the words, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" show powerful doubling. The date itself, 1968, also carries that strange shadowing effect. Collectors call this the 1968 S doubled die obverse. And it's one of the most sought-after varieties in modern U.S. coin history. But here's the twist. Most people who own one don't even know it. They toss it back in a penny jar, never realizing that what they just touched could pay off a mortgage, wipe away debt, or change a family's future. They're rushing to get their hands on them. Auction houses are setting record prices. And collectors who once laughed at pocket change are now obsessively checking every penny they come across. Because this isn't just a coin. It's proof that miracles can hide in the smallest places. But wait. Here's something you need to hear. Not every 1968 S penny is worth $1 million. Most are worth face value. Some may be worth a few cents, or maybe $1 if they're in pristine condition. The real fortune lies only in those rare double die varieties. That's why education, and attention to detail, is everything. Now, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you looked closely at the pennies in your pocket? Really looked? Not just glanced. Because imagine the story. You're standing at a gas station. You hand over a penny, not knowing it could have been your $1 million ticket. Collectors have reported finding them in circulation as late as the 1990s. Others turned up in forgotten rolls of pennies saved by families decades ago. The truth is, these coins are out there. Right now. Waiting, and the key to unlocking their value is knowledge. Knowing exactly what to look for, where to look, and how not to make the mistakes others made. Because here's the danger. Many people mistake machine doubling for true doubled die errors. Machine doubling looks flat, shelf-like, almost like a smear. True doubled dies, like the legendary 1968's, shows strong, rounded, almost three-dimensional doubling. That's the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1 million. But here's the part that collectors find almost unbelievable. There are only a handful of confirmed 1968's doubled die obverse pennies known today. Fewer than most people imagine. That means the supply is tiny. And when supply is tiny, and demand is massive, the price explodes. That's why we've seen values soar to incredible heights, hundreds of thousands of dollars, with the potential to cross the $1 million mark. And every time one surfaces, the entire coin world holds its breath. But let me tell you something else. Every great coin story begins with someone who wasn't even looking. They didn't expect it. They weren't professional dealers. They were ordinary people, like you. They were curious enough to check their change, bold enough to send a coin for grading, and patient enough to trust that maybe, just maybe, they had something extraordinary. Collectors were shocked when the first examples were authenticated. Dealers couldn't believe it. And even today, whispers run through the hobby. Is there another one out there? Could the next big find still be hiding? So here's your moment. Your wake-up call. Don't ignore the pennies sitting in your drawer. Don't overlook the rolls of coins your parents or grandparents saved. Because the next 1968's doubled die could be sitting right there. What you're looking for is clear. The mint mark. S. Under the date. The doubling on. In God we trust. The strong shadows on. Liberty. And of course, the unmistakable doubling of the year. 1968. If you see those, you may just be holding a coin that could change your life. Think about it. One small penny. One stroke of luck. One moment of curiosity. And suddenly, you're looking at a piece of copper worth up to $1 million. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash. But when collectors discovered what it really was, it stunned the entire coin world. A simple 1976 penny, with a tiny D under the date, turned out to be worth over $1 million. Think about that for a moment. Millions of these pennies were minted in Denver in 1976, the year America celebrated its bicentennial. People were waving flags, fireworks filled the sky, and the U.S. Mint was striking coins by the billions. Nobody ever thought one of those little copper coins would one day shake the entire collector market. But hidden among them, a mistake was made. A mistake so rare, so invisible to the untrained eye, that it transformed a coin that should have been worth just 1 cent into a life-changing fortune. And here's the twist: that penny could still be sitting in someone's pocket change right now. Maybe even yours. One man reportedly found his in a jar of coins that had been sitting untouched for decades. Dusty, forgotten, the kind of jar we've all seen on a dresser or in the back of a closet. But when he pulled out that 1976 penny, something felt different. The strike looked unusual. The color of the copper didn't match the others. And when he brought it to a dealer, jaws dropped. Because what he had wasn't just a penny, it was $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to confirm it. Auction houses were preparing for something they rarely see, a modern penny being valued like a rare gold coin. And when the final hammer came down, the sale price wasn't hundreds, not thousands, not even hundreds of thousands. It was over $1 million. But here's where it gets even stranger. Most people glance at a 1976 penny and toss it away, never even realizing what they're holding. And yet, the difference between a penny worth face value and one worth $1 million can come down to one microscopic detail. Some of these coins were struck with unusual errors, doubled dies, misaligned strikes, or even off-metal compositions. Imagine a penny that was supposed to be copper but was accidentally struck on a different planchet. Or a coin with doubled lettering so subtle, most people never notice. These hidden mistakes are exactly what collectors live for. And in the case of the 1976 D, a few of these errors slipped past the mint's quality control. Rare variations that turned into the holy grail for collectors. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because once word got out about this $1,000,000 penny, people started searching. Dealers saw a rush of 1970-60 pennies being brought in, every collector hoping they'd found the next fortune. Some coins turned out to be worth thousands, others tens of thousands. But the rarest examples, the ones with that perfect combination of minting mistake and pristine condition, skyrocketed into the $1,000,000 range. Most of the time, people overlook these details. They spend the penny, throw it into a change jar, or use it at a vending machine. That's why these discoveries are so shocking. One man's pocket change became a $1,000,000 payday, simply because he stopped and looked closer. Now imagine this. You're going through old coins in a coffee can, and there it is, a 1976 penny with that tiny D mint mark. You think it's nothing. But then you take a closer look. The date looks doubled. The edges don't seem right. The weight feels just a little off. Could it be? Could this be one of the rare survivors worth $1,000,000? Collectors say the rush of finding one is like winning the lottery, except you don't need to buy a ticket. You just need to pay attention. And let's not forget the year itself. 1976 wasn't just any year. It was the bicentennial. Every American remembers those coins with the special designs, the quarters with the drummer boy, the celebrations of freedom. People were saving coins from that year as souvenirs. Which means thousands of 1976 pennies are still sitting in drawers, untouched. Waiting. That's why experts believe more of these $1,000,000 pennies may still be out there. Every estate sale, every coin jar, every dusty shoebox in someone's attic has the potential to hide one. Not every 1976 penny is valuable. Most are worth just 1 cent. The fortune lies in the details. Look for coins with sharp, uncirculated condition. Pay attention to the weight. Some era coins were struck on planchets meant for dimes or foreign coins. And study the date and lettering carefully. A doubled die error could turn your penny into a treasure, and if you're not sure, never spend it. Put it aside. Because even the smallest chance that you're holding a coin worth hundreds of thousands, or even over $1,000,000, is worth taking seriously. Think about it this way. Someone once spent this coin at a store for gum or soda. It passed through countless hands. And yet today, that same penny is locked away in a collector's case, insured for more than most homes. That's the kind of transformation that makes coin collecting so addictive. Every coin tells a story. But only a few can change lives. So the next time you see a 1970-60 penny, stop. Look closer. Hold it to the light. Examine every line, every detail. Because the difference between ordinary pocket change and a $1,000,000 discovery could be right in front of your eyes. And here's the truth that sends chills down every collector's spine. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1,000,000. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it turned into a life-changing discovery worth over $1,000,000. That's right. A simple 1989 penny, the kind most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up from the sidewalk, became the key to one of the most shocking stories in modern coin collecting. The answer hides in the tiniest of details. Because the 1989 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny isn't just another piece of copper-plated zinc. It's a rare survivor of minting quirks, unnoticed errors, and mysteries that slipped past the careful eyes of the U.S. Mint. And today, it's one of the most valuable coins still circulating in America. Someone cleaning out an old jar of change almost tossed it away. Just another penny, right? But a sharp-eyed collector spotted a subtle difference, a missing mint mark. That small omission transformed this pocket change into a treasure worth up to $1.20 million. Collectors were stunned. Dealers scrambled. Suddenly, every 1989 penny was worth another look. But here's the twist. Not every 1989 penny is special. In fact, millions of them are completely ordinary. What makes this coin worth a fortune is a single, overlooked detail. And if you don't know what to look for, you could pass it by without even realizing it. One man did just that. He paid for a soda with his change, sliding a penny across the counter, unaware he had just spent what could have been a $1,000,000 miracle. That coin is gone forever. But others still hide in plain sight, Now, let's step back in time. The year was 1989. George H.W. Bush had just stepped into the White House. A gallon of gas cost less than $1. And the Lincoln Memorial penny was the workhorse of American currency. Billions of pennies were struck that year. Billions. But somewhere in the chaos of dies and presses, a handful slipped through without their proper mint mark. That tiny mark, usually a small D for Denver or S for San Francisco, is the key to identifying where a coin was struck. But when it's missing, everything changes. Collectors know that a no mint mark error isn't just rare. It's historic. It's like a fingerprint erased from history. And when auction houses caught wind of a 1989 penny with no mint mark selling for over $800,000, the coin world erupted. Dealers rushed to re-examine their collections. Everyday people dug through piggy banks. And eventually, one pristine example sold for an astonishing $1.20 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The discovery sparked a frenzy, and a flood of fakes. Opportunists began altering pennies, polishing away mint marks, trying to cash in on the excitement. Suddenly, collectors faced a dangerous game: how to separate true treasures from clever counterfeits. That's why knowing exactly what to look for is so important. The genuine 1989 no mint mark Lincoln penny has very specific traits. The details of Lincoln's bust are crisp, the edges are sharp, and the coin has no sign of tampering. The missing mint mark isn't rubbed away, it's cleanly absent, as if it never existed, and that's the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth over $1 million. Think about that. 1 cent. A penny that buys nothing in today's world could secretly hold the value of a dream house, a luxury car, or a lifetime of financial security. Dealers are still whispering about it. Collectors are still searching. And right now, at this very moment, one of these coins could be sitting in a forgotten jar on someone's dresser. But here's the most thrilling part. The odds aren't as impossible as they sound. Every year, rare coins turn up in the most ordinary places: thrift store cash registers, grocery store change, even school vending machines. One man found a rare penny in the bottom of a charity donation bucket. Another pulled his out of a parking meter return slot. Each discovery proves the same point: these treasures are out there. And they're waiting to be found. But most people, they'll miss it. They'll toss it into the change drawer, slide it across a counter, or let it roll under the couch. Not you. You're different. Because now you know the secret. You know to check every 1989 penny that passes through your hands. You know to look closely, to notice what others ignore. And the reward for your patience, for your persistence, could be life-changing. Collectors were shocked when the first one sold for 6 figures. They were stunned when another crossed the $1 million threshold. But imagine being the next person, the one who uncovers the coin that sends ripples through the entire collecting world. First, don't clean it. Ever. Cleaning a coin can slash its value in half instantly. Handle it gently, by the edges, and keep it safe. Second, compare it carefully to other 1989 pennies. Look for the missing mint mark. Make sure it's not been scratched or rubbed away. A genuine no mint mark error will look natural, not forced. Finally, if it looks promising, have it authenticated by a professional grading service. They're the only ones who can confirm the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million. This isn't just a story about coins. It's a story about miracles hiding in plain sight. About ordinary people finding extraordinary treasures. Because the truth is, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a gas station change drawer, but instead, it turned into a $1 million miracle. The 1964 D Lincoln penny. A coin most people wouldn't even glance at. A coin most people think is just another common cent. But hidden within that familiar copper shine lies one of the greatest treasures ever to slip quietly into circulation. And tonight, we're going to uncover its secret, the story of how one ordinary penny became worth up to $1.3 million. Back in 1964, America was buzzing with change. Lyndon B. Johnson was president, the Beatles were storming across the U.S., and the mint in Denver was producing billions of Lincoln cents. Yes, billions. Over 3.7 billion pennies rolled out of the presses that year. They were everywhere, in soda machines, in pocket change, on every street corner. To most people, they were the most common coin in America. But here's where the story takes a strange and thrilling turn. Some of those 1964 D pennies weren't like the rest. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Whispers began to spread among collectors in the late 20th century. Stories of a single 1964 D penny selling for hundreds of thousands. A penny that seemed identical at first glance, but on closer inspection, held a flaw, a mistake, a rare marker that transformed it into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Collectors were shocked, because no one had expected such a coin to survive. Dealers began rushing to find one. Ordinary people started checking their jars, their dresser drawers, their piggy banks, and then, one surfaced at a prestigious auction, a 1964 D penny, gleaming red-brown with near-perfect condition, was unveiled. The bidding war was fierce. Dealers fought. Collectors gasped. Prices climbed higher and higher until the hammer dropped, well into the hundreds of thousands. Over time, as demand exploded and only a handful of these rare 1964 D pennies came to light, their value soared. Today, under the right conditions, one of these mysterious coins can be worth up to $1.3 million. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The Denver Mint, like any mint, was under enormous pressure in 1964. America was in the middle of a coin shortage. Machines were running around the clock. Errors slipped through. And some of those pennies were struck on experimental planchets, slightly off metal blanks, or even transitional errors linked to the coming changes in U.S. coinage. Others were struck with doubled dies, their lettering or dates showing faint doubling that only the sharp-eyed collector could catch. These errors turned what should have been a 1-cent coin into a priceless relic. Imagine holding one of those pennies in your hand. You never know, until you tilt it just right, until you spot the doubling in Liberty, or the tiny misalignment in the mint mark. Until you feel the thrill of realizing this is no ordinary coin at all. One man did. His story is still told among collectors today. He found his $1 million penny not at an auction, not in a dealer's case, but in his father's old coin jar, hidden away for decades. What he thought was a curiosity turned out to be one of the rarest errors in American history. His life changed overnight. These coins are still out there. Somewhere in America, right now, someone has a 1964 D penny sitting in a forgotten box, a dusty drawer, maybe even rattling around in a coffee can of spare change. They don't know. They can't imagine. But when they finally do, the coin world will never forget. Collectors were shocked when prices first crossed the $1 million mark. Dealers couldn't believe it. Yet every auction since has proven the same thing: rarity drives value, and nothing excites collectors more than a hidden treasure disguised as pocket change. And now comes the part you've been waiting for: how to tell if you've got one. Look closely at your 1964 pennies with the tiny D mint mark under the date. The rarest examples will show errors, doubled dies, unusual strikes, or off-metal planchets. Some weigh differently than standard pennies. Others show slight variations in the design details, things you'd never notice unless you examined them under a magnifying glass. If your 1964 D penny looks unusual, don't dismiss it. Have it checked. A professional grading service can turn your curiosity into a confirmed treasure. Condition matters. A scratched, worn coin won't bring life-changing money. But a sharp, uncirculated piece, a coin that survived decades without losing its luster, is the kind of penny that makes headlines. Think about that. One coin, struck 60 years ago in Denver, meant to be worth 1 cent, now valued at over $1 million, and it could be yours. The story of the 1964 D penny isn't just about metal and mint marks. It's about the thrill of discovery. It's about the idea that hidden riches could be sitting unnoticed in your own home. It's about hope and chance, and the reminder that history sometimes hides its treasures in plain sight. So tonight, before you toss your change onto the counter or let it slip into a jar, pause. Look closer. Because somewhere among those dull brown cents, a fortune could be waiting. A fortune disguised as something ordinary. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1,000,000. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for over $1,000,000. Yes, you heard that right. A simple penny, struck in 1976 with a tiny D mint mark, has shocked the collecting world, turning what most people see as pocket change into a fortune. And tonight, you're going to learn the hidden story of this rare coin, why it's worth up to $1.4 million, and exactly what you need to look for before you spend your next penny. At first glance, a 1976 Lincoln penny looks ordinary. Copper tone, Lincoln's profile, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. You've seen thousands. But buried inside this year's mintage was a tiny, nearly invisible mistake. A minting quirk so rare that only a handful exist. And when the first of these coins appeared at auction, collectors could hardly believe their eyes. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Imagine a man emptying his change jar one evening. A dull brown penny, scratched and worn, caught his eye. Nothing unusual, until he noticed the date. 1976. And just below, a D mint mark. Something looked off. The coin seemed thicker. The shine was different. Almost like it didn't belong. He sent it to be graded, never expecting much. But when experts placed it under the microscope, jaws dropped. They were looking at a penny worth well over $1,000,000. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to get their hands on one. Stories spread like wildfire. How could a coin so common, so ordinary, carry such unimaginable value? And here's where the mystery deepens. The year 1976 wasn't just any year. America was celebrating its bicentennial, 200 years of independence. The U.S. Mint was running nonstop, striking special commemorative quarters, half-dollars, and dollar coins with unique bicentennial designs. But the humble penny? It remained unchanged. Or so we thought. Behind the scenes, as the presses ran day and night, tiny errors began to creep into production. Wrong planchets, blank discs intended for foreign coins, slipped into the machinery. Some were struck on bronze, some on experimental alloys, and a very few with misaligned dies that gave them unique doubling or off-center strikes. Each mistake created a coin unlike any other. And when those coins carried the 1976 date and Denver Mint mark, they became some of the rarest cents in U.S. history. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. For example, one 1976 D Lincoln penny struck on a silver-colored planchet, likely intended for a dime, was authenticated and sent to auction. The bidding war that followed was nothing short of legendary. Wealthy collectors battled, determined not to let this treasure slip away. And when the gavel finally fell, the coin sold for over $1.4 million. One man's pocket change had become $1,000,000 miracle. But the story doesn't end there. Another collector, a woman in her 60s, found a strange 1976 penny lodged between the seats of her old pickup truck. She almost threw it away. But something about the color seemed different, lighter, more silvery. She took it to a coin dealer. Just in case. That dealer nearly fainted when he realized what he was holding. Her casual find turned into a life-changing payday. She walked away with a six-figure check. That's right, a single penny turned into hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yet most people still don't know what to look for. So let's reset. Picture yourself holding a 1976 penny right now. How do you know if it's ordinary or extraordinary? The secret lies in the details. First, the weight. A normal 1976 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. But the $1,000,000 versions? They're often struck on the wrong planchet, sometimes weighing less, sometimes more, depending on the metal used. If your penny feels off in weight, that's your first clue. Second, the color. Most pennies from this era are a deep copper. But rare error strikes can appear silvery, gray, or even golden in tone. If your penny looks different from the others in your change, don't ignore it. And third, doubling. Some 1976 D pennies show doubled images in the date, the mint mark, or the word Liberty. This doubling isn't just a quirky look, it can turn your coin from pocket change into a life-changing fortune. But here's the part that gives every collector chills. Most of these rare pennies are still out there. Sitting in jars, tucked in drawers, lying forgotten in old boxes of change. Dealers believe dozens more could exist, undiscovered, waiting for someone like you to pick one up and realize what you're holding. Picking up a penny, something so small, and realizing it could change your life forever? That's the magic of coin collecting. Collectors whisper about these coins like legends. Some believe the mint quietly tried to cover up the mistakes. Others think more exist in private collections, hidden away by families who don't yet realize their value. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. When one of these pennies surfaces, it sends shockwaves through the entire coin world. Now let's talk about mistakes to avoid. Many people confuse ordinary worn pennies for valuable errors. A scratch or a stain doesn't make your coin rare. Neither does simple discoloration from years in circulation. What you're looking for are true mint errors, the kind that occur during production. Weight differences, wrong metal planchets, doubling, or off-center strikes. Those are the details that matter. Dealers have seen thousands of hopeful collectors bring in ordinary coins. But every once in a while, someone walks in with a true rarity, and that's when history is made. Have you weighed them, studied their color, examined them under a magnifying glass? Because the next $1 million penny could be hiding in your own home. Think about it. One man's pocket change bought his family a house. One woman's truck coin turned into a retirement fund. These are not just stories, they're proof. Proof that life-changing treasure is still out there. The 1970-60 Lincoln penny, ordinary to the eye, but extraordinary to those who know its secrets. Worth up to $1.4 million, and possibly sitting in your drawer right now. So before you spend your next penny, stop. Look closer. Because the tiniest coin in your pocket might just be the biggest discovery of your life. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it became one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin history. A simple 1978 penny, no mint mark, the kind you'd expect to find rattling at the bottom of a coffee can, turned out to be worth more than most people's houses. How much? Up to $1.5 million. And what makes it even more unbelievable is this: thousands of Americans have handled this exact type of coin without realizing what they were holding in their hand. Imagine this for a second. You're digging through an old drawer, looking for spare change. You spot a dull brown penny from 1978. You almost toss it aside. After all, what's a penny worth today? Nothing more than a copper-colored nuisance. But if you looked closer, just a little closer, you might notice something different. Something almost invisible to the untrained eye. That tiny detail could transform a 1-cent coin into a $1 million miracle. Collectors were stunned when the first of these rare 1978 no-mint mark pennies appeared on the market. Nobody could believe that a coin minted in the late 70s, a year when gas was 65 cents a gallon and Jimmy Carter was president, could carry such a hidden secret. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A single coin, pulled from circulation, found its way to an auction house. At first, dealers expected it might fetch a few $100s, maybe a few thousand at best. But as the bidding began, the room grew tense. Numbers kept climbing. 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. Collectors leaned forward in disbelief as the price crossed into six figures. And then, as the final gavel struck, the coin had crossed the unimaginable threshold, hundreds of thousands of dollars for a single penny. What could possibly make a coin this common suddenly worth the kind of money that changes lives? The answer lies in a perfect storm of rarity, errors, and history. In 1978, most pennies were struck with the familiar D for Denver or S for San Francisco. But some slipped through without a mint mark at all, a mysterious absence that transformed them from ordinary pocket change into treasures of historic value. And this isn't just about a missing letter. Oh no. The 1978 no-mint mark penny carries more than just scarcity. Some of these coins show subtle doubling, microscopic variations that only sharp-eyed collectors catch. Others reveal oddities in the strike, faint details on Lincoln's portrait, unusual spacing in the lettering, even strange die cracks that make each coin one of a kind. These are the clues, the fingerprints of a mistake, the hidden signatures of fortune. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle when he discovered his 1978 penny matched all the signs. He thought it might be worth a few bucks. Instead, his coin became the centerpiece of one of the most dramatic coin sales of the decade. And here's the part that makes collectors lose sleep at night: there could be more. Dozens, maybe even hundreds, of these rare pennies could still be out there, forgotten in jars, tucked into piggy banks, or sitting in dusty boxes of old change. But the story takes another twist. At coin shows across America, whispers began to spread. Some dealers claimed to have seen similar 1978 no-mint mark pennies changing hands quietly, off the books, for enormous sums. Tens of thousands here, hundreds of thousands there. Was it true? Or was it just a collector's legend designed to spark rumors and inflate prices? One thing's for sure: every time one of these coins surfaces, the bidding war is ferocious, and the headlines leave even veteran numismatists speechless. And yet, most people miss it. That's the shocking truth. The 1978 no-mint mark penny hides in plain sight, looking just like any other. It's the small details, the subtle weight, the luster, the absence of a mint mark, the condition of the coin, that make all the difference. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on these coins before they vanish into private collections forever. Because once they're gone, they're gone. So how do you know if you're holding the right one? Start with the mint mark. Flip your penny and look just below the date. If there's no D or S there, your heart should skip a beat. Next, study the coin under a bright light. Look for any doubling in the letters of Liberty or In God We Trust. Check Lincoln's eye, his lips, his collar, areas where minting mistakes often reveal themselves. And don't overlook the weight. Some 1978 pennies were struck on transitional planchets, leftover metal blanks from previous years, which gives them a slightly different composition. The truth is, you don't need to be a professional to find one of these. People just like you, ordinary collectors, have stumbled upon them in the most unexpected places. Estate sales, garage sales, coin rolls from the bank, even in pocket change after buying a cup of coffee. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1.5 million could be nothing more than taking an extra 10 seconds to look closer. Could it happen to you? Right now, at this very moment, the answer is yes. That coin sitting in your drawer, that handful of change in your car, that jar you've ignored for years, any one of them could contain the 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny worth more than $1 million. And the only way you'll ever know is if you check, because in the end, this isn't just a story about a coin. It's a story about chance, about fortune, about the thin line between ordinary and extraordinary. A story where a single penny, something most people overlook, something most people discard without a second thought, could become the key to financial freedom. And now, it's your turn. Go check your pennies. Look at every single one. Don't ignore the old, the dirty, the dull. Because hidden among them could be the coin that changes your life forever. The coin that turns pocket change into a fortune. The coin that proves miracles don't just happen, sometimes you find them in the palm of your hand. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked collectors worldwide when it sold for over $1 million. Imagine holding a penny from 2005, the kind you toss into a change jar without a second thought. Ordinary, copper-colored, nothing special. Or at least, that's what most people thought. But hidden in this single year of production, a mysterious mistake gave birth to one of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever struck. And to this day, many believe there are still undiscovered examples floating in pocket change, waiting to be found. The story begins in 2005, a year most of us barely associate with coins at all. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies, billions. Each one was supposed to look identical, carrying the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse, with a small mint mark tucked neatly beneath the date. But for reasons no one has ever fully explained, a tiny fraction of these pennies left the mint without that all-important letter. No D for Denver. No S for San Francisco. No P for Philadelphia. Nothing. Just a bare date, 2005.81st. No one noticed. After all, how many people stare closely at their change? But one day, a collector did. And what he saw nearly made him drop the coin on the spot. This wasn't a scratched-off mint mark, or damage from circulation. This was a clean, undeniable strike, a true no-mint mark error. But here's the part that stunned everyone. When word spread of this error, demand exploded. Dealers scrambled to verify it. Collectors whispered about its rarity. Auction houses braced themselves. And when one of these pennies finally crossed the block, the bidding war was nothing short of a frenzy. A single coin, barely worth 1 cent at face value, was suddenly commanding 6 and even 7-figure offers. The final hammer price? Around $1.6 million. For a penny that could have slipped through your fingers at the gas station. The answer lies in rarity, and the perfection of the error itself. Most modern no-mint mark mistakes are caught quickly, destroyed before they reach the public. But in 2005, something slipped. Just a few escaped into circulation, each one a golden ticket for whoever found it. And because collectors crave perfection, the best preserved examples in pristine condition brought fortunes. Now, imagine the emotions of the person who first discovered it. A routine glance at pocket change turned into a life-changing moment. One man's penny jar became a $1 million miracle. Stories like this remind us why the coin world is filled with passion, suspense, and obsession. But the story doesn't end there. Because every time a new 2005 penny is pulled from circulation and examined under the glass, the possibility remains: could this be another one? Could another life-changing discovery be hiding in plain sight? Dealers are still watching. Collectors are still hunting. And the question hangs in the air like a mystery unsolved. This tiny detail, the missing mint mark, is why it's worth millions. And here's the twist most people miss: not every penny that looks suspicious is the real deal. Many coins show wear or damage that make the mint mark disappear. But those don't count. Only the clean, original, no mint mark strike is the treasure. And spotting the difference is what separates the dreamers from the lucky few who cash in. Think about it. You could be holding one of these right now. Maybe it's slipped into a coffee shop till. Maybe it's sitting at the bottom of a drawer. Maybe it's been hiding in a jar for years, just waiting for someone to notice. That's the thrill of coin collecting, the possibility that history and fortune are sitting quietly in your pocket. Collectors who've handled one describe it as surreal. Ordinary in appearance, yet extraordinary in value. Dealers talk about the electric buzz at auctions, the kind of bidding wars that make headlines. And when the gavel falls, when that tiny penny sells for over $1 million, the crowd gasps. Every time. Because it's not just money. It's the magic of discovery. 2005. Then look directly beneath it. If there's no mint mark at all, no D, no S, no P, then you might be holding the impossible. Use a magnifying glass. Check for signs of wear or damage. Remember, scratches, smudges, or worn-off mint marks don't count. The true $1 million coin will show a perfectly struck date with nothing beneath it. Clean. Empty. Silent. And if you find one, don't rush to sell it. Handle it carefully. Protect it. Then, get it graded by a reputable service, because condition can multiply the value dramatically. Collectors were shocked when this penny first surfaced. Dealers raced to track down others. And to this day, the legend of the 2005 no mint mark penny haunts the hobby, a constant reminder that fortunes can hide in the smallest places. 1 cent, worth $1.6 million. That's the kind of story that keeps coin hunters searching, staring at their change, and dreaming of the discovery that will change their lives forever. And maybe, just maybe, the next life-changing penny is in your hands right now. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer at this very moment, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but one shocking discovery turned it into a life-changing fortune. We're talking about a simple Lincoln penny from 1965, a coin that most people would never give a second glance. Yet today, the right 1965 penny with no mint mark has sold for up to $1.7 million. Imagine this for a second. You're emptying your pockets after a long day. A handful of change clinks onto the counter. Among them is a copper penny, faded, worn, nothing special. You almost sweep it into a jar, or worse, toss it aside without thinking. But in that moment, you could be holding $1 million secret in your hands. The story of the 1965 no mint mark Lincoln penny begins with chaos at the U.S. Mint. The year was historic. The government was battling a nationwide coin shortage. Silver had been stripped from dimes and quarters, people were hoarding coins, and the mint was producing billions of pennies to keep up with demand. Mistakes slipped through. Misstrikes. Wrong planchets. And coins that were never supposed to leave the mint's presses found their way into circulation. One of those mistakes became a legend, the 1965 no mint mark penny. Collectors call it a silent rarity, because on the surface it looks so ordinary. Just Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile on one side, the Lincoln Memorial on the other. No flashy markings, no unusual design. And yet, hidden in plain sight is a detail that transforms this penny into one of the most valuable coins of its era. But here's the twist most people don't know. In 1965, mint marks were deliberately removed from U.S. coins. The government feared collectors were hoarding coins with certain marks, worsening the shortage. So, they ordered all mints to strike coins without mint marks. Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, everything looked the same. Which means finding a 1965 penny with a special minting flaw is like finding a needle in a haystack. But when that needle appears, it's worth a fortune. Collectors were stunned when one such penny crossed the auction block. A tiny imperfection, invisible to the untrained eye, sent its price soaring. The hammer fell, and what had once been pocket change was now valued at nearly $1.7 million. Dealers gasped. Collectors whispered. And the world of numismatics, the study of coins, would never see 1965 the same way again. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread fast. Suddenly, ordinary people began digging through jars, drawers, old boxes of coins. Families remembered pennies left behind by parents and grandparents. One man swore he found his $1 million miracle at the bottom of a coffee can in his garage. Another collector discovered his treasure tucked into a roll of pennies he bought at a local bank. This is the kind of story that keeps collectors awake at night. How many 1965 pennies are still out there? How many are sitting unnoticed in wallets, desks, or old coin albums? And here's the secret detail you need to know. The most valuable 1965 pennies aren't just ordinary strikes. Some were struck on leftover silver planchets, blanks that should have been melted down. Others carried doubling on Lincoln's profile or the lettering, a dramatic error that only sharp eyes can catch. A rare few even show striking mistakes so bold that they've become one of a kind. That's why dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Because the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1.7 million comes down to the tiniest flaw, the smallest oversight, the subtlest detail. Picture this. A coin dealer lifts a 1965 penny under the harsh glow of a magnifying lamp. He squints, shifts the angle, looks again. His heart skips. There it is, the doubling, the misstrike, the impossible planchet. In that moment, the coin in his hand transforms from pocket change into history, and into wealth. Collectors were shocked when the first major auction records came in. A single 1965 penny with the right error could outshine rare silver dollars, even gold pieces. This wasn't just a coin. It was a miracle of chance, a survivor of mistakes, a symbol of fortune hiding in the ordinary. It means that right now, sitting in a drawer or coin jar in your home, you might already own this life-changing penny. Think about that. You've walked past it, handled it, maybe even dismissed it, without realizing it could be worth $1 million. The most important thing is knowing what to look for. When you check your 1965 pennies, start with weight. Ordinary copper pennies should weigh about 3.11 grams. But some rare ones were struck on leftover silver planchets, weighing closer to 2.5 grams. If your penny feels lighter, it could be the one. Next, grab a magnifying glass and check the lettering and Lincoln's profile for doubling. 2 outlines where there should only be 1. That tiny distortion could mean a massive payout. Finally, look for off-center strikes, blank areas, or any strange coloration. Every unusual detail is a clue, and here's the part most people miss. Because the US Mint made billions of pennies in 1965, your coin might look completely ordinary. That's what makes the rare ones so valuable. They're hiding in plain sight. Dealers know it, collectors know it, and now, you know it too. So before you toss that change into a vending machine, before you let that penny slip through your fingers, take one more look. Because the exact coin that could change your life forever might already be in your possession. This is not just a story about coins. It's a story about fate, about history, about miracles buried in the everyday. The 1965 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has proven that a single cent, overlooked by millions, can rise to become a $1 million legend. So tonight, when you open your wallet or jar of change, take a closer look. Hold each penny to the light. Feel the weight, study the details, and remember the stories you've heard today. Because one day, one ordinary evening, you might realize you've been holding your fortune all along. The most valuable treasures aren't always gold or diamonds. Sometimes, they're copper, small and round, and hiding right in your pocket. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost got thrown away with a handful of loose change, yet today, it's valued at up to $1.8 million. Imagine that for a second. A single copper coin, barely worth a cent to the average person, carrying the power to change someone's entire life. The story begins in 1979. The US Mint in Denver was cranking out billions of Lincoln pennies. They were ordinary, everyday coins, the kind you'd toss into a parking meter or forget at the bottom of a pocket. Nobody paid them a second thought. But out of that ocean of copper-plated coins, a handful slipped through with something extraordinary, mistakes so small, so hidden, that only the most careful eyes could ever spot them. And those mistakes are the reason some of these 1979 D pennies are worth a fortune. Now here's where it gets fascinating. Most pennies are just pennies. But every once in a while, one error coin slips past the inspectors. A doubled die, a misaligned strike, or a tiny minting flaw that transforms a coin into something almost mythical. And that's exactly what happened in 1979. Some of these pennies carry doubling on Lincoln's portrait. Others show subtle shifts in the lettering. And a few have the kind of striking irregularities that collectors would fight tooth and nail to own. But what happened next stunned the coin world. One of these rare Denver minted pennies, a coin so ordinary looking most people would never give it a second glance, showed up at auction. Collectors whispered about it for months. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. And when the hammer finally fell, the price wasn't $100. It wasn't $1,000. It soared into the hundreds of thousands, and today, in pristine condition, one of these rare 1979 D pennies can fetch up to $1.8 million. Think about that. 1 cent. 1 coin. $1 million miracle, and here's the part most people miss. The difference between a penny worth face value and one worth a fortune can be a tiny detail, invisible to the casual glance. Look closely at the date. Is there doubling on the 1979? Examine the D Mint mark. Is it perfectly struck, or does it show signs of being repunched? Look at the lettering in Liberty or In God We Trust. Under magnification, you might see irregular lines, ghost-like doubling, or anomalies that reveal a minting error. Collectors were shocked when they realized how many of these rare variations existed. And yet, most of them remain hidden in drawers, coin jars, and old coffee tins across America. That's the real mystery here. How many million-dollar pennies are still out there, waiting to be discovered? But what if I told you a man once found one of these coins in a handful of pocket change? He wasn't a professional collector. He wasn't an expert. He was just curious enough to look a little closer. And that curiosity turned spare change into a life-changing payday. Dealers still talk about that story today. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And here's something even more unbelievable. Some 1979 D pennies carry errors so rare, they're essentially one of a kind. Off-center strikes that reveal blank spaces of raw copper. Die cracks that snake across Lincoln's profile like scars. Double dies that make the date appear shadowed, almost ghostly. To most people, they look like mistakes. To collectors, they're treasures, the kind of treasures that command 6- and 7-figure prices. But what happened next made headlines. In a crowded auction room, surrounded by seasoned dealers and eager bidders, a single 1979 D penny crossed the block. The bids came fast. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. And then silence, before one final, jaw-dropping number. Nearly $1.8 million for a coin that once jingled in someone's pocket like it was worth nothing at all. This is why collectors never stop searching. Every roll of pennies, every dusty coin jar, every forgotten piggy bank could hold the next miracle. And if you know what to look for, you could be the one to find it. So let's break it down. Here's what you need to look for in a 1979 D penny. First, always check the mint mark. On these rare $1 million examples, the D may be repunched, meaning you can see traces of more than one strike on the mint mark. Next, inspect the date. Doubling on the 1979 is a major red flag that you've got something special. Then, look at Lincoln's face and the words, "In God We Trust." Any signs of doubling, distortion, or unusual thickness in the letters could indicate a valuable error. Finally, don't ignore the edges. Off-center strikes or clipped planchets can turn an ordinary penny into an extraordinary one. Collectors are hunting for these details right now. Dealers are rushing to scoop them up before they disappear into private collections. And auction houses are preparing for the next $1 million headline. The truth is, most people will spend their whole lives never realizing they may have held one of these coins in their hands. But you're not most people. You now know the secret. You know what to look for. And you know that a single penny, a simple 1979 D Lincoln cent, could be worth over $1 million. And here's the question you have to ask yourself: have you checked your change lately? Because that miracle coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, waiting for you to notice it. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine it, the same copper penny you toss into a jar at the end of the day, the same coin you ignore at the bottom of your car cup holder, turning out to be the key to a life-changing fortune. The year was 1997. Bill Clinton was president. Gas was still under $1.25 a gallon. Most Americans thought nothing of pennies. They were pocket change, a nuisance, the smallest coin in circulation. But hidden among the billions of ordinary Lincoln Memorial cents struck that year at the Denver Mint, a handful of extraordinary mistakes slipped through. Mistakes so rare, so unexpected, that today, one of those tiny copper coins is valued at up to $1 million. How could something so small, so ordinary, turn into a collector's dream? That's where the story takes its first twist. Because unlike silver dollars or gold coins that scream value, this is a penny that whispers its worth only to those who know what to look for. Collectors were shocked when one of these rare 1997 D pennies surfaced at an auction. At first glance, it looked like any other penny. Brown, slightly worn, with Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile staring off into history. But under closer inspection, experts saw it, a minting error so rare, so unusual, that dealers rushed to get their hands on it. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The coin crossed the auction block, and the bids started flying. $10,000. $50,000. $100,000. The crowd gasped as the price kept climbing higher and higher. And when the hammer finally fell, one humble penny had transformed into nearly $1 million miracle. Think about that for a moment. 1 cent, a coin literally worth 1/100th of a dollar, became a ticket to a life of financial freedom. This is why coin collecting isn't just a hobby. It's a treasure hunt. A game of patience and sharp eyes where the stakes are life-changing. Why would anyone pay such an unimaginable sum for something most of us wouldn't bend down to pick up off the sidewalk? The answer lies in the tiny details. Some of these rare 1997 Denver pennies carry dramatic minting flaws. Doubled dies. Off-center strikes. Wrong planchet errors, meaning the coin was struck on the wrong type of metal. Imagine a penny struck on a dime's silver disc by mistake. The result is a coin the mint never meant to create, a coin that shouldn't exist, but does. And those are the coins collectors will pay nearly $1 million for. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he knew what to look for. He noticed the doubling in the date. He saw the faint spread in Lincoln's profile. He caught what thousands of others missed. And that single moment of awareness turned his penny into a life-changing treasure. But here's the part that gives every collector goosebumps. These coins are still out there. Every day, they pass through hands unnoticed. They're tucked away in drawers, hiding in piggy banks, sitting in dusty coffee cans filled with just pennies. You might even have one right now, without knowing it. And this is where the story gets even more suspenseful. Because most people think rare coins only come from the 1800s or early 1900s. But this penny proves that modern coins struck in our own lifetimes, can be worth millions too. It's not about age. It's about rarity. It's about mistakes that slipped through the mint's defenses and found their way into circulation. Collectors who discovered these coins weren't wealthy. They weren't experts. They were ordinary people like you, men and women who simply took a second look at the change in their hands. One woman reportedly found hers while rolling coins to take to the bank. Another stumbled upon one at a gas station when her change included a penny that looked just a little off. The coin world erupted with excitement each time one of these surfaced. Dealers scrambled. Auction houses knew they had lightning in a bottle. And every new discovery drove home the same chilling truth: there are still more waiting to be found. But what happened next made this story even more unbelievable. The more collectors learned about the 1997 D penny, the more they realized the error was incredibly rare, rarer than almost any modern minting mistake. This wasn't just a lucky find. It was like hitting the lottery twice. The number of known examples? Barely enough to count on one hand. And yet, rumors persist that others are still out there. Coins sitting undisturbed for decades, waiting for someone to finally see what they truly are. First, check the mint mark. It must have the D for Denver. Next, look closely at the date. Under magnification, some of these show doubling, the numbers appearing like they were struck twice. Also, inspect Lincoln's eye, mouth, and profile. If they look distorted, you may be holding a doubled die. Other rare examples show off-center strikes, where the design doesn't sit perfectly on the coin. If Lincoln's head looks shifted, or if part of the design is cut off, that could be worth tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands. And the Holy Grail? A 1997 D penny struck on a silver dime planchet. Thin, silvery, and wildly valuable. That's the kind of coin that turns into $1 million discovery. Collectors were stunned when these details came to light. Dealers whispered about them at shows. And now, you're in on the secret. You know exactly what to look for. The difference between an ordinary penny and $1 million miracle is only a matter of awareness. Think about that the next time you get change at the grocery store. Think about it when you empty your pockets at night. Because the greatest treasure hunt in America isn't buried gold, it isn't sunken ships, it's in your pocket change. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it turned into $1 million miracle. We're talking about the 1975 Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks like every other copper-colored cent you've probably ignored 1,000 times. You've seen it, tossed it into a change jar, maybe even dropped one and never bothered to pick it up. But buried inside this ordinary year is a story so shocking, so mysterious, that collectors are still stunned to this day. Imagine this. One day you're counting your loose change after a grocery run. You see a penny dated 1975. You don't think twice. But what if I told you that tiny coin in your palm could be worth up to $1.1 million? That's not just life-changing, It's almost unbelievable. And yet it has happened. The story begins with a quiet year in the U.S. Mint. The year was 1975. Gerald Ford was president. America was still reeling from Watergate. Gas was cheap, music was loud, and pennies? They were everywhere. Over 5.4 billion Lincoln cents rolled off the presses that year. Nothing special, right? Or so it seemed, but hidden in that ocean of coins, a few slipped through with something unusual. Something that shouldn't exist. And it was those very mistakes, those quiet accidents of history, that transformed worthless copper into treasures worth millions. Collectors who stumbled upon them didn't just find change, they found destiny. Now here's the part most people miss. Every penny minted in Philadelphia that year carried no mint mark. On purpose. It was the standard at the time. But a tiny handful of these 1,975 coins carry errors so rare they shock the entire coin world. One is rumored to show traces of the wrong die, an imprint that should never have been struck. Another example displays doubling in the date so dramatic it looks like the numbers are screaming off the surface. And then there are coins with striking misalignments, off-center, ghostly impressions that make them one of a kind. One of these coins, a simple 1975 no-mint mark penny, ended up at auction and sold for over $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. A coin you could have ignored, overlooked, or even dropped in a vending machine, turned into a payday most of us only dream about. Collectors were floored. Dealers rushed to see it. Bidding wars erupted. And when the hammer finally dropped, a humble penny had transformed into a $1.1 million legend. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because once word got out, thousands of people across the country began scouring their change. Some dug through old coffee cans. Others raided drawers that hadn't been touched in decades. Families tore through jars passed down from grandparents. Everyone was looking for that one coin, the 1975 penny that could turn their luck upside down. And here's where the suspense deepens. Stories began to surface. A retired mechanic in Ohio found one in a pile of coins he nearly gave away to his grandson. A woman in California discovered hers while rolling pennies for laundry. Both of them had been holding on to small fortunes without even knowing it. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And it could happen to you. But here's the secret most people don't realize. Identifying the right penny isn't just about the date, it's about the details. Look closely at the 1975. Does the date look doubled? Are there strange shadows, almost like a second set of numbers underneath? Flip the coin. Is Lincoln's profile off-center, or missing detail in his hair and coat? Does the rim look too thick on one side, too thin on the other? These tiny flaws are what separate an everyday coin worth a penny from a collector's dream worth over $1 million. And let's not forget condition. A coin that looks sharp, with no scratches or wear, can multiply in value dramatically. Collectors will pay enormous premiums for pennies in pristine condition. That's why people who find them in rolls or untouched stashes often hit the jackpot, because their coins escaped circulation and remain almost perfect. How many times have you walked past one lying on the sidewalk? The truth is, that tiny coin you've been ignoring could be the very piece of copper that changes your life forever. But here's something else you need to know. Not all 1975 pennies are valuable. Millions upon millions are just worth face value. And that's the trap, because the valuable ones hide in plain sight. They don't glow. They don't shine like gold. They look exactly like the coins you've seen 1,000 times. Which is why so many end up slipping through people's fingers without ever being noticed. That's why collectors say the 1975 penny is one of the most dangerous coins of all. Because it tricks you. It pretends to be worthless, until you realize it's not, and the mystery doesn't stop there. Some experts whisper about experimental strikes, pennies that might have been minted on planchets meant for dimes or foreign coins. If you spot a 1975 penny that feels lighter, smaller, or somehow off, you might be holding one of the rarest errors ever discovered. What if, sitting in your drawer right now, lies the coin that could rewrite your financial future? The only way to know is to look carefully. Every date, every mark, every rim. Hold it under a magnifying glass. Shine a flashlight across its surface. Sometimes the light reveals details invisible to the naked eye. That faint doubling, that tiny misalignment, it could be the key to unlocking $1 million payday. Collectors have spent years chasing these coins. Dealers have spent fortunes acquiring them. And yet they're still out there. Because most people don't know what to look for. So let me make it simple. If you find a 1975 penny with no mint mark, keep it aside. Check for doubling in the date. Check for off-center strikes. Check for unusual weight or size. And above all, check its condition. Because the right combination could take your penny from pocket change to $1 million treasure. History has proven again and again that miracles hide in the smallest places. A penny left in a jar. A coin sitting in your glove box. A cent that almost ended up in the trash. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for more than $1 million. Yes, a single 1980 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, something most people would overlook, turned into one of the most shocking coin discoveries in American history. Think about that for a moment. A coin you've probably seen 1,000 times, a coin worth 1 cent on paper, suddenly becomes a life-changing fortune. Collectors call it one of the greatest modern coin miracles. Dealers couldn't believe it when they first heard the news. And what makes it so incredible is that you could still find one hiding in your own pocket change. But how can a penny minted in 1980, a year when millions and millions of coins rolled off the presses, possibly reach a value of over $1.2 million? The answer lies in a hidden error, a rare mistake that slipped through the powerful machinery of the U.S. Mint, a mistake so small that most people will never notice it, yet so powerful that it transforms a worthless coin into a millionaire's dream. Back in 1980, America was on the edge of a new decade. Inflation was high, gas was expensive, and Ronald Reagan was preparing to run for president. The penny, the simplest coin in American wallets, was still struck from 95% copper, a heavy little disc that jingled with a satisfying sound. The mint had produced hundreds of millions of them, almost identical. But here's where the story takes a dramatic twist. Somewhere in the chaos of production, a tiny number of pennies left the mint without their mint mark. A mint mark is that tiny letter, usually a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco, that tells you where the coin was made. On most 1980 pennies, you'll see that D or S. But on this rare treasure, nothing. The space is empty. The mint mark never struck. And that absence, that blank space where a letter should be, is exactly what makes this penny worth a fortune. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At first, these no mint mark pennies went unnoticed. They traveled in change jars, cash registers, and pockets, blending in with the billions of other pennies. Nobody suspected they were handling something priceless. Until one day, a sharp-eyed collector spotted the missing mint mark and realized what he had just found. Word spread like wildfire. Coin dealers scrambled to verify the discovery. And when the first of these rare 1980 no-mint pennies hit the auction block, jaws dropped. Bidding wars erupted. Collectors who had waited their whole lives for such an opportunity opened their wallets without hesitation. The final hammer price? Over $1.2 million. A penny that nearly got lost in pocket change now stood as one of the most expensive modern U.S. coins ever sold. Now imagine this. A man sitting at his kitchen table, sorting through his spare change, expecting nothing more than a pile of dull copper cents. Then he flips over a penny from 1980. He looks once. Then again. Something feels off. He realizes the mint mark is missing. At first, he doubts himself. Could this really be the coin everyone talks about? Could he really be holding $1 million treasure? His hands start to shake. His heart pounds. And in that single moment, his life changes forever. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. Some said it was a once-in-a-generation mistake. Others whispered that more could still be out there, hidden in old jars, forgotten in dusty drawers, sitting quietly at the bottom of a piggy bank. And that's what keeps this mystery alive. Because here's the truth, not every 1980 penny without a mint mark will be valuable. But the ones that meet certain conditions, the right condition, the right strike, the right error, those are the coins that reach into the realm of million-dollar sales. And the only way to know is to check. But here's where it gets even more thrilling. The tiny detail most people miss is the quality. Collectors call it grade. If your coin looks worn, with scratches and dull surfaces, it might still be rare, but it won't hit the million-dollar mark. The ones that shock the world are the pristine examples, shiny, crisp, as if they just rolled out of the mint yesterday. A flawless 1980 no-mint mark penny in this condition is what turned an ordinary man into a millionaire overnight. And if you're thinking, well, there's no way I'd ever have one, think again. Every single rare penny discovered so far came from someone who wasn't expecting it. People find them in circulation, in old bank rolls, in forgotten coffee cans stored in the attic. One man even discovered his life-changing penny while counting change for a vending machine at work. He thought nothing of it at first, but when he saw the blank spot where the mint mark should be, he knew he had stumbled onto something extraordinary. But what happened next is what makes this story unforgettable. That man, who thought he was just killing time feeding coins into a soda machine, walked away with a piece of history worth more than his house. His penny sold for a staggering six-figure sum, and experts believe it could be resold today for over $1 million. This is why collectors never stop searching. Because the world of coins is full of miracles hiding in plain sight. A small error, a missing detail, a blank space where something should be, it's like a secret code written into the metal itself. And if you crack that code, if you recognize the sign, you could change your life with nothing more than a single cent. So here's what you need to look for. First, the year, 1980. Turn the coin over. Below the date, there should normally be a mint mark, a small D or S. If it's completely missing, you could be staring at a rare error. Second, examine the condition. The shinier and cleaner the coin, the higher its value. Collectors pay millions for what they call gem uncirculated pennies, meaning coins that look untouched. And third, always double-check with an expert or grading service before you assume anything. Many coins have worn marks or damage that can trick the eye. Only the true minting errors carry the life-changing price tag. And here's the emotional truth: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now. Maybe it's in a jar of coins you've ignored for years. Maybe it's in a box you inherited from a relative. Maybe it's in your pocket at this very moment. The only thing standing between you and $1 million miracle is whether you take the time to look. Because every collector's dream starts with a simple discovery. One coin. One detail. One chance. And the 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is living proof that life-changing treasures can still be found where you least expect them. So check your change. Search your drawers. Don't ignore those old jars in the attic. Because the next 1980 no-mint mark penny worth over $1 million could be waiting for you. And if you love uncovering secrets like this, rare coins that can turn ordinary people into millionaires overnight, make sure to subscribe for more. Because every week, we're revealing the hidden treasures that could change your life. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. A penny from 1988. The year of Michael Jordan's slam dunk contest win. The year of big hair, cassette tapes, and neon jackets. Back then, nobody would have looked twice at a penny in their pocket. But today, one tiny 1988 penny with no mint mark has become the stuff of legends, with a value that has stunned collectors, dealers, and auction houses alike. The shocking truth is this: a simple coin, the size of your thumbnail, is now worth up to $1.3 million. And the story of how it got there is unlike anything you've ever heard. Collectors were stunned when it first appeared. Dealers scrambled to confirm it was real. And one lucky person's everyday pocket change became $1 million miracle. But how did something so small, so ordinary, turn into a treasure that could change someone's life forever? The answer begins deep inside the machinery of the U.S. Mint. In 1988, billions of Lincoln cents were struck, most of them ordinary, destined to clink around in cash registers and piggy banks. But a tiny fraction slipped through with mysterious differences. Differences so rare, so overlooked, that only a handful of people on Earth have ever truly recognized them. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector picked up what looked like just another penny. Dirty. Worn. Almost worthless. But as he turned it in his hand, a detail caught his eye. The lettering didn't look quite right. The finish wasn't normal. The mint mark, the tiny letter that tells you where a coin was made, wasn't there at all. No D for Denver. No S for San Francisco. Just nothing. At first glance, it was easy to dismiss. But hidden in that blank space was a secret worth more than anyone could imagine. That penny was different. And difference, in the world of coin collecting, is everything. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You see, the 1988 no mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's a mistake. A rare, accidental product of the US Mint, where a coin blank that should have carried a mint mark somehow slipped through untouched. It shouldn't exist. And yet it does, and that's what makes it so powerful. When something that isn't supposed to exist ends up in circulation, it transforms into legend. The first time one of these coins hit the auction block, the bidding war was nothing short of electric. Collectors whispered. Dealers held their breath. Each number climbed higher and higher and higher. Until, finally, the hammer came down. Over $1 million for a penny that most people would have tossed aside without a second thought. One man's pocket change had just become $1 million miracle. But here's the part that gives every coin collector goosebumps. More of these coins are out there. They could be hiding in penny jars, in old dresser drawers, even at the bottom of your couch cushions. Right now, someone could be carrying one around without ever knowing. Imagine finding it. Imagine pulling a coin from your change, brushing it off, and realizing you're holding something that could buy you a house, a new car, or even fund your retirement. That's not just luck. That's history colliding with destiny. But what makes it even more fascinating is that this isn't the only penny with a hidden story. In fact, history is full of coins that turned out to be worth life-changing amounts of money because of tiny details most people never notice. But the 1988 no mint mark Lincoln penny remains one of the most dramatic examples, because of how ordinary it looks. It hides in plain sight, waiting for the right pair of eyes to notice. Collectors have called it the ghost penny. Others call it the phantom coin. Dealers say it's one of the most exciting modern rarities in U.S. history. And yet, the average person has no idea it even exists. But what happened after its discovery is even more shocking. Once the news spread, collectors across the country started digging through their stashes. Old coffee cans filled with pennies. Jars of change forgotten in basements. Some even broke open their childhood piggy banks, hoping for a glimpse of the legendary coin. Stories started surfacing, like the man who swore he found one in an old collection left to him by his grandfather. Or the woman who checked a handful of pennies in her glove compartment and stumbled onto a treasure worth hundreds of thousands. Each story added fuel to the fire, and the legend grew. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to get their hands on any possible example. And suddenly, the 1988 penny wasn't just a coin. It was a dream. A symbol of hope. A reminder that sometimes, the greatest treasures hide in the smallest places. First, check the date. It has to be 1988. Then, look closely at the area just beneath the year, near the rim. That's where the mint mark would normally be. If you see a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco, it's just a regular coin. But if you see nothing at all, no letter, just blank space, your heart should skip a beat. But wait. There's more. You have to make sure it's not just worn down or damaged. Many pennies lose details over time, but true no mint mark errors are crisp, clean, and unmistakable. That's the detail that separates a penny worth 1 cent from a penny worth over $1 million. And here's the cliffhanger no one expects, even experts sometimes miss it. That's how subtle, how tricky, this coin can be. Which means the only way to know for sure is to look, carefully, patiently, with a collector's eye. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now. And if it is, you're not holding just a coin. You're holding history. You're holding destiny. You're holding a piece of copper that could be worth up to $1.3 million. So the next time you get change at the grocery store, don't just shove those pennies aside. Don't assume they're worthless. Because buried among them could be the coin that changes everything. Collectors dream about it. Dealers chase it. And you? You could be the one who finds it. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for over $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple Lincoln penny, struck in 1984 with a tiny D under the date, has shocked the entire coin world. A coin most people overlook, one that has passed through millions of hands, one that could be hiding in your own pocket change right now. And yet, under the right circumstances, it has commanded as much as $1.4 million at auction. But how? How can a single copper-colored coin, worth just 1 cent to the U.S. Treasury, become a life-changing fortune for an ordinary person? That's the mystery we're about to unravel, and the truth will leave you staring at every penny you touch for the rest of your life. The year was 1984. Ronald Reagan was president. Gas was just over $1 a gallon. The penny, redesigned in 1959 to feature the Lincoln Memorial on the back, was so common that nobody thought twice about it. You tossed it in a jar, left it in your car's ashtray, or ignored it at the bottom of your grocery bag. But somewhere in the machinery of the Denver Mint, something extraordinary happened. A tiny error, an almost invisible flaw, transformed a routine coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And here's the part that stuns collectors to this very day. This error wasn't a crack in the die or a double strike that leaps out at you. No. It was subtler. Hidden. Almost like the mint was daring only the sharpest eyes to discover it. Because in 1984, some Lincoln pennies were struck with what's now known as the double-ear variety. That's right. Look closely at Lincoln's portrait, just behind his jawline, and you'll see a faint, doubled outline of his ear. Most people never notice it. But those who do, well, they might just be holding a fortune. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In the early 2000s, a collector who had been searching through rolls of pennies stumbled across one of these rare 1984 D varieties. At first, he thought it was just another ordinary cent. But then the light hit it a certain way, and he noticed the doubling. He took it to a dealer. The dealer's jaw dropped. Within months, that coin hit the auction block, and sold for a staggering 6 figures. And as the years went on, prices only climbed higher, until eventually one of these elusive pennies reached the $1 million mark. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on any example they could find. Suddenly, the 1984 D penny wasn't just pocket change, it was a golden ticket. But here's the twist. Not every 1984 D penny is valuable. Millions upon millions were struck, and only a tiny fraction carried the doubled ear. That means most people glance right over them, never realizing what they're holding. The key is knowing what to look for. Imagine this. You're sorting through an old coffee can of coins left behind by your grandfather. You dump them on the table, pennies clattering like rain. At first, it looks like nothing but change, dull, scratched, brownish cents. But then, one coin catches your eye. You lift it closer. The date says 1984. Just below it, the tiny D mint mark gleams. You squint, tilting it under the light. And then you see it. A faint second ear on Lincoln's head. Your heart pounds. Could it be? Could this be the $1 million penny you've heard about? This exact moment has happened to people, and it has changed their lives forever. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And it could happen to you. But here's where most people miss the mark. They assume any 1984 D penny is rare. That's not true. You must carefully check the portrait. Look specifically at Lincoln's ear. If you see doubling, that faint but undeniable second outline, then you've got something special. Without it, the coin is just worth a cent. With it, you're sitting on a treasure worth up to $1, $1.40 million. And here's another cliffhanger that makes this story even wilder. Many of these coins are still out there. Unlike rarities from the 1800s, which have long been locked away in collections, the 1984 D penny is modern enough that it still turns up in circulation. It could be in your pocket, your purse, your change jar, or in a forgotten roll of pennies sitting in a drawer. Why would collectors pay millions for such a tiny error? The answer is history, rarity, and obsession. You see, coin collectors have a deep fascination with mistakes. Every misstrike, every flaw, every tiny doubling is like a fingerprint of the mint's human side. It's proof that even the most precise machines can falter. And when they do, the result is a one-in-a-million masterpiece. This is why dealers fight over coins like the 1984 D doubled ear. It's not just a cent. It's a story. A story of an accident that turned into an artifact. A story of an ordinary person who could find extraordinary wealth hiding in plain sight. And that's why prices have soared into the millions. But what happened at that auction still echoes in the coin world. When the hammer fell and a humble penny brought $1.4 million, collectors everywhere suddenly believed again. Believed that life-changing discoveries were still possible. That a miracle could be hiding in their change jar. That's the kind of hope that drives treasure hunters, collectors, and dreamers every single day. And maybe that's you. First, check the date, 1984. Second, check for the Denver D mint mark under the ear. And most importantly, study Lincoln's ear. Use a magnifying glass, good lighting, and patience. If you see that doubling, that faint second ear, you might just be staring at a fortune. And let me warn you of the most common mistake: don't confuse scratches or wear with true doubling. Real doubling looks like an actual second ear, clean and raised from the strike. If you're not sure, get it graded by a professional service. Because one certified coin could change your life. Collectors were shocked when the first ones surfaced. They're still shocked today. And the truth is, nobody knows how many are still out there. That's what makes this so thrilling. Every penny you touch could be the 1.so the next time you get change back at the store. Don't dismiss the pennies. Don't shove them in a jar without looking. Because hidden among them could be a coin worth over $1 million. Yes, the 1984 D Lincoln penny, with its doubled ear variety, is more than just a coin. It's a symbol of chance, luck, and the possibility that the ordinary can become extraordinary. And remember this: the only difference between pocket change and $1 million treasure is whether you take the time to look. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today it's worth nearly $1 million. Imagine tossing away a single penny, the kind you barely notice, only to find out later it could have changed your life forever. That's the story behind one of the most mysterious and valuable coins ever struck by the United States Mint, the 1972 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks like the kind of penny you've seen a million times. Copper-colored, Lincoln's profile, the words, "In God We Trust." But hiding in plain sight, some of these coins carry a secret so powerful it stunned collectors, shocked dealers, and created life-changing paydays. One of these tiny copper cents sold for up to $1.5 million. But how could such an ordinary coin be worth so much? The truth begins in 1972, a year of change and uncertainty. Richard Nixon was president, the Vietnam War was dominating headlines, and in the background, the U.S. Mint was cranking out billions of Lincoln cents. Billions. With that kind of mass production, mistakes were bound to happen. And one particular mistake would give birth to a legend. It wasn't just any mistake. This was a doubling so strong, so dramatic, that when the light hits the coin just right, it almost looks like it's vibrating. The date, 1972, appears doubled. The word, liberty, shouts out in 2 layers. Even the phrase, "In God We Trust," looks like it was struck twice by some unseen hand. Collectors call it the 1972 double-die penny, and it is one of the most breathtaking minting errors of all time. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. Most people never noticed it. Think about it. Billions of coins were thrown into circulation. They went into registers, jars, pockets, and piggy banks. Families spent them at grocery stores. Kids used them for bubble gum. All the while, $1,000,000 pennies were slipping through fingers unnoticed. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In the 1970s, sharp-eyed collectors began to spot something strange in their pocket change. At first, people thought it was a trick of the eye, maybe a smudge, maybe dirt. But under a magnifying glass, the doubling was undeniable. It wasn't damage. It wasn't wear. It was a true minting error, one that could transform a penny into a fortune. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them. Prices started climbing. Word spread like wildfire through coin shows, collector magazines, and auctions. And then the real shock came. The best examples, those preserved in pristine condition, began fetching sums so high that jaws dropped. The record sales climbed until eventually, one sold for an astonishing $1.5 million. Yes, a penny. A single cent turned into life-changing money. And here's the thing, they're still out there. Some are buried in old collections. Some are hidden in dusty jars in garages and attics. And yes, some may still be sitting quietly in pocket change. That's the thrill that keeps collectors awake at night, the chance that one ordinary coin could secretly be extraordinary. But let's pause for a moment. Imagine the story of one man in Ohio. He was a casual collector, nothing serious, just liked to save coins with unusual dates. One day he noticed a penny that looked different. The numbers seemed fuzzy. He almost spent it without a second thought. Instead, he tossed it into a jar. Years later, while sorting through his change, he took another look. This time he used a magnifying glass. What he saw nearly made him fall out of his chair. It was the 1972 double-die penny. He sent it in to be graded, and when it came back, the value shocked him. 6 figures. 1 penny, a life-changing miracle. Collectors were shocked. Dealers couldn't believe it. Stories like his prove that these coins are not myths. They are real, and they are still being discovered. Now here's where you need to pay attention, because this is the key moment. What exactly makes the 1972 no-mint mark penny worth up to $1.5 million? It all comes down to the doubling. On a true double die, the letters and numbers are doubled in a dramatic, unmistakable way. Liberty should look doubled. The date, 1972, should appear as though it's vibrating. And most importantly, in God we trust, will be so bold and doubled that even an untrained eye can spot it with a little patience. But here's the catch. There are many minor varieties, small doubling errors, or even coins that simply look worn down. Those are not the $1 million coins. Only the strongest double-die varieties, in the best condition, carry the enormous value. That's why collectors send their coins to professional grading companies. That's why mint-state examples, bright, shiny, and flawless, bring the big money. And there's one more twist. The condition of the coin changes everything. A heavily circulated example might be worth hundreds or even thousands. But a gem mint-state coin, the kind that looks almost untouched since 1972, is where the $1 million miracle lies. That's the difference between pocket change and a fortune. Think about that. A coin that could have been sitting in your hand at the grocery store in 1972, a coin that a kid might have flipped into a fountain, today has the power to completely transform someone's life. That's not just history. That's destiny. So the next time you see a 1972 penny, don't ignore it. Don't toss it aside. Take a close look. Hold it under the light. Check the date, the word liberty, the phrase "I in God we trust." Because if you see that dramatic doubling, you may be holding one of the most valuable coins in American history. Collectors are hunting for them. Auction houses are waiting for them. And the truth is, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today it's worth up to $1.6 million. Imagine holding a penny in your hand, a coin so ordinary, so small, you wouldn't give it a second glance. Yet hidden in plain sight, this copper-colored coin carries a secret so rare, so shocking, that it's rewriting the very rules of collecting. This isn't just pocket change, this is life-changing money. The year was 1970. America was at a turning point. The Vietnam War was raging, the Beatles were breaking up, and the Lincoln penny was quietly being struck by the millions at the Denver Mint. To most, it was just another year, another penny. But deep within the minting presses, something extraordinary slipped through. A small, almost invisible error, one that would turn an everyday coin into a seven-figure legend. Collectors didn't notice it at first. Why would they? After all, the penny had been around since 1909. Billions had been minted. It was the most common coin in circulation. But one day, one collector looked closer. And what he found stunned the coin world. This wasn't just any penny. It was a 1970 D Lincoln cent, with a minting mistake so rare, so breathtaking, that it elevated this coin from a single cent to a fortune. But what exactly went wrong at the Denver Mint? Here's where the story gets mysterious. In some 1970 D pennies, the date itself carries the mistake. A doubling on the numbers, a dramatic, bold error known as a double die. And this doubling is so sharp, so visible, that it can be spotted with the naked eye if you know where to look. Collectors who found it couldn't believe their luck. One man even pulled his from pocket change. His friends laughed when he said it was worth more than his car. But at auction, the truth came out. That penny sold for tens of thousands of dollars. And then, as more were discovered, the bidding wars began. But the story didn't stop there. One specific example, nearly flawless in condition, its fiery red luster glowing under the auction lights, set the room on fire. Bids flew higher and higher. Dealers whispered in disbelief. Collectors held their breath. When the hammer finally fell, this little copper coin had just sold for over $1.5 million. A penny, for the price of a mansion. And here's the shocking part. Most people are walking past these coins every single day. They sit in jars, in dressers, in dusty boxes of old change. They ride along in rows from banks. People spend them without knowing. That is the greatest mistake of all, because one lucky glance could be the difference between 1 cent and $1 million miracle. Now, let me give you the secret. This coin is hiding in plain sight, but there's one tiny detail that reveals its fortune. On the 1970 D penny, look at the date. If the numbers, especially the 1970, appear doubled, with a kind of shadow or ghost-like second image, you may be staring at the jackpot. This doubling is bold and visible without high-tech tools. And if you have one in high grade, glossy, uncirculated, with that brilliant red shine, you're in the territory of 6 and even 7-figure auctions. But here's the twist that keeps collectors awake at night. Most people think they've checked their pennies. They glance quickly, shrug, and move on. That's the mistake. Because it takes patience, a careful eye, and sometimes even a magnifier to truly see the doubling. Thousands of these coins have been overlooked, spent, or tucked away in dusty jars. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on them. Collectors are hunting tirelessly. And yet, the next one might already be in your home. Imagine the moment of discovery. You're sifting through an old box of coins. Maybe it belonged to your grandfather. Maybe it's just a jar of loose change you've had for years. Your eye catches something odd. The numbers on a 1970 D penny look strange, doubled. You rush to compare it. Your heart races. Could it be? Then the realization hits you. You may be holding a coin worth over $1.6 million. Collectors have described that moment as pure electricity. A jolt through the veins. A sense of awe that something so small, so overlooked, could transform their lives. Some call it luck. Others call it destiny. But one thing is certain, these coins are out there, waiting to be found. And every time one surfaces, the coin world erupts. Auction rooms light up with excitement. Headlines capture the drama. Penny sells for over $1 million. Ordinary people become overnight legends in the collecting community. Stories like this inspire thousands to start searching, to believe that maybe, just maybe, lightning could strike for them, too. While you've been listening, millions of pennies have changed hands across America. At gas stations, grocery stores, and coffee shops. Somewhere, right now, someone just received a 1970 D penny and doesn't even know they're holding a fortune. That's the magic of coin collecting, treasures hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right person to recognize them. Start with your change. Look through every penny carefully. Pay attention to the date. Focus on 1970 with the Denver D mint mark. And if you see doubling on the numbers, especially on the 0, stop everything. Protect that coin. Get it authenticated. Because you may have just stumbled on one of the rarest, most valuable pennies in American history. Never underestimate the power of small details. A single shadow line on a date. A tiny doubling on a number. That's what separates 1 cent from $1 million. Collectors, dealers, and treasure hunters all know the truth. These coins are out there. They're not locked away in museums. They're not all in private collections. Some are still circulating, right now, as we speak. The next great discovery could be yours. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't just toss those pennies aside. Look closely. Because the coin that changes your life forever might be hiding among them. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for nearly $2 million. It was just another Lincoln penny, a 1969 Denver mint, tossed into a pocket, dropped into a change jar, forgotten like so many others. But inside this tiny circle of copper hides a mistake so rare, so impossible, that it transformed what should have been a worthless coin into one of the most valuable treasures in American numismatic history. Collectors were stunned. Dealers couldn't believe it. And for one ordinary person, a single penny became $1 million miracle. Why do some 1969 D pennies look just like any other, while a select few carry a secret that could make their owner rich beyond imagination? The story begins at the U.S. Mint in Denver, 1969. A turbulent year in America. The Vietnam War raged on. Neil Armstrong was taking his first steps on the moon. And deep inside the coin presses of the Denver Mint, a mistake was born. It was subtle, almost invisible to the naked eye. A doubling of the design, a doubled die. At first glance, the coin looked normal. But upon closer inspection, Abraham Lincoln's profile, the date, the lettering, they appeared doubled, almost like a shadow had been stamped right alongside the real image. This wasn't just a small error. It was dramatic, undeniable. And it changed everything. At the time, no one noticed. Pennies rolled off the presses by the millions. Bags of them were shipped to banks, grocery stores, and gas stations. Kids used them for candy. Parents dropped them into piggy banks. Most of them vanished into circulation, never to be seen again. But then, a few collectors stumbled upon something strange. Their 1969 D pennies didn't look like the others. The letters. Liberty. The date, even. In God we trust. They looked bold, doubled, as if the coin had been struck twice. Word spread. Could it be a new double die variety? What happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these coins surfaced at auction, and bidding went wild. What should have been a 1-cent piece suddenly climbed to tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. Finally, it crossed into the unbelievable. One of these 1969 D double die pennies sold for nearly $1.7 million. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. Collectors were desperate to find one. And across America, ordinary people began rifling through jars of change, searching for what might be the most valuable penny of their lifetime. Not every 1969 D penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth just a cent or two. Only the ones struck with the rare double die error carry that $1 million secret. And the difference between the two can be surprisingly easy to miss. Focus on the details. On a true 1969 D double die penny, you'll see dramatic doubling on the words, Liberty, and In God We Trust. The numbers in the date, especially the 9, appear as if a shadow version is stamped right alongside them. It's bold. It's clear. It's nothing like the faint, worthless, machine doubling that many beginners mistake for the real deal. Back in the late 60s and early 70s, counterfeit coins were flooding the market. The government was on high alert. So when one man brought in his strange doubled penny, officials thought it was fake. Imagine the heartbreak. To hold what could be $1 million coin in your hand, only to be told it's worthless. But experts stepped in. The coin was examined, authenticated, and declared real. And just like that, history was made. That little penny, once accused of being a fake, became one of the most sought-after coins in the world. Collectors couldn't believe it. Ordinary Americans began dumping their coin jars, searching through pocket change, praying to find that double-die Denver Mint penny. And every time one was confirmed, headlines followed. But here's the part that keeps everyone hooked: only a tiny handful exists. Fewer than a dozen high-grade examples are known today. And when they come up for auction, they ignite a firestorm. One sold for hundreds of thousands. Another crossed into the $1 million range. And the rarest, most pristine examples? They flirt with $1.7 million. Imagine that. A coin you could have spent on bubble gum or soda, suddenly worth more than most houses. And yet many people walk right past it. Because here's the shocking truth: millions of 1969 D pennies are still floating around, buried in old coffee cans, resting in shoeboxes, tucked away in jars of loose change. Most people never bother to check. And that's why this story still has the power to change lives. You're at the kitchen table, sifting through an old jar of pennies your parents left behind. You spot a 1969 D. You look closer. The letters look strange. The numbers look doubled. Your heart races. Could this be it? Collectors have lived that exact moment. Some walked away with nothing. Others walked away with life-changing money. But what makes it even more dramatic is how many fakes are out there. Scammers know the 1969 D double die is famous. They've created counterfeits, altered coins, even tried to etch fake doubling onto ordinary cents. And countless people have been fooled. That's why, if you ever think you found one, you need to have it authenticated by a trusted grading service. Because if it's real, you could be holding up to $1.7 million in your hand. Think about that. A single penny, smaller than a dime, lighter than a paperclip, carrying the power to rewrite your financial future. And that's why collectors still chase it today. That's why every jar of coins feels like a treasure chest. And that's why you should never, ever ignore a 1969 D penny. Check the details. Look for the dramatic doubling. Avoid the trap of machine doubling. And remember, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now. And it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the coin world when it sold for nearly $2 million. It looks like nothing more than a regular Lincoln penny, minted in 1976, the year America celebrated its bicentennial. But hidden in plain sight, a rare version of the 1976 D penny has become one of the most valuable coins ever to slip through the fingers of everyday Americans. Worth up to $1.8 million, this is the kind of find that can change a life overnight. The story begins in Denver, 1976. While most collectors were chasing special bicentennial quarters, halves, and dollars, almost nobody was paying attention to the humble penny. Day after day, the U.S. Mint struck billions of Lincoln cents, each stamped with a small D mark under the date, signaling it was minted in Denver. To the naked eye, they all looked identical. But somewhere in that vast ocean of copper coins, a mistake was made. A mistake so rare, so subtle, that only the sharpest eyes would ever spot it. Collectors whisper about it like a ghost story. The 1976 D penny with the hidden flaw. It wasn't until decades later that one collector, while sifting through what he thought was pocket change, saw something unusual. The coin had sharper detail, a curious flaw in the minting process, and a striking finish that didn't match the millions of ordinary 1976 pennies. He nearly tossed it aside. But instead, he did something that changed everything. He got it appraised. And when the results came back, dealers were stunned. This wasn't just any penny. This was a once-in-a-generation rarity. The type of era coin that makes even seasoned collectors lose their breath. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At auction, this ordinary-looking 1976 D penny brought in a staggering amount, up to $1.8 million. That's right. A single penny, the coin most of us overlook, turned into a $1 million miracle. Why? Because the US Mint doesn't make mistakes like this often. When it does, those mistakes are quickly caught, melted down, or destroyed. But somehow, this one slipped away. And that tiny slip created one of the most sought-after pennies in modern American history. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. Collectors started scouring rolls of coins, desperate to find another. And suddenly, the humble 1970 60 penny, a coin most people ignore without a second thought, became a treasure worth chasing. This is where it gets fascinating. You see, the rare 1970 60 penny isn't just valuable because of its age. It's valuable because of the details. Look at the mint mark. On many of the valuable versions, the D is misaligned, doubled, or punched in a way that looks unusual. Look at Lincoln's face. On some of these rare coins, doubling on his profile or lettering makes them stand out from the ordinary. And here's the biggest secret: condition is everything. Collectors were shocked to learn that a 1970 60 penny in pristine condition, with full luster, sharp edges, and no scratches, can skyrocket in value. Even without a major error, the right grade can mean thousands. But combine that condition with a rare error, and suddenly, you're talking about life-changing money. But what happened next stunned even the experts. One coin, nearly identical to the $1 million version, sold for six figures, even with small blemishes. Why? Because demand is so high, and collectors know that once these coins disappear into private collections, they may not surface again for decades. Imagine that. A coin you could pull from a coin jar, a change machine, or even find at a garage sale, worth hundreds of thousands, maybe even $1.8 million. And here's where the story gets even more inspiring. One man, a small-town collector who started by casually hunting through coin rolls, found one of these rare 1970 60 pennies completely by accident. He thought it was nothing. Just another copper cent. But when he sent it in to be graded, the results came back. An era coin so rare, experts called it a once-in-a-lifetime find. That one discovery paid off his debts, secured his retirement, and changed his family's future forever. Now imagine if that were you. You, holding a coin you've had for decades, sitting in a drawer, waiting to be discovered. And here's the kicker: most people will never know. Most people will glance at this penny, see Abraham Lincoln's face, the date, 1976, the little D beneath it, and spend it without a thought. But those who look closer, those who know what to look for, could uncover a fortune hiding in plain sight. Start with these key signs: a clear, unusual mint mark, any doubling on the date or lettering, and above all, condition. If the coin has a sharp shine, full original detail, and looks untouched, you may be holding something extraordinary. Collectors are still searching. Dealers are still paying top dollar. And every time one of these coins appears, it sends shockwaves through the market. Because nobody knows how many are left. Think about it. How many people tossed one of these pennies into a parking meter, a vending machine, or a piggy bank, never realizing they just gave away a life-changing fortune? And that's why this story matters. Because the next one could be yours. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine that. A single penny, a coin most of us wouldn't even bother to pick up off the sidewalk, transformed into a life-changing fortune. And here's the kicker: you might have one of these in your pocket right now. The year was 1980. Ronald Reagan was about to take office, gas was climbing toward $1.25 a gallon, and the Lincoln Memorial penny was just another everyday coin. But hidden deep within the mints, a subtle error, a tiny oversight, created a rare version of the 1980 penny that today can command staggering prices. Most people never look twice at these coins. After all, pennies are the smallest denomination, the most overlooked. They jingle in ashtrays, roll under couches, and vanish inside old coffee cans. But one lucky collector discovered that his ordinary-looking 1980 penny was anything but ordinary. When he brought it to auction, experts were floored. What they thought would fetch a couple $100 quickly shot into the hundreds of thousands. Bidding wars broke out. Collectors gasped. And when the final gavel came down, that penny had climbed to nearly $1 million. The secret lies in its details. The 1980 penny was minted without a mint mark from Philadelphia. And while most were ordinary copper-plated zinc coins, a select few carried striking anomalies: doubled dies, misaligned strikes, off-center errors, mistakes so subtle most people never see them. Yet, when they're there, dealers are willing to pay a fortune. That's why every collector who knows the story of the 1980 no-mint mark penny checks their change with wide eyes and trembling hands. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. After that $1 million sale, demand exploded. Stories spread like wildfire. People began combing through their jars of change, tearing through old piggy banks, desperate to find another golden ticket hiding in plain sight. And guess what? More discoveries were made. One coin, almost flawless in condition, fetched hundreds of thousands of dollars on its own. Each sale sent shockwaves across the numismatic community, proving again and again that even in the modern era, the U.S. Mint's smallest mistakes could become priceless treasures. Imagine being the person who walked into a coin shop with what he thought was pocket change, only to walk out with a check large enough to pay off a house, retire early, or change his family's future forever. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Most people who owned these rare 1980 pennies never knew what they had. They spent them at gas stations, left them in tip jars, or lost them in parking lots. Somewhere, countless treasures slipped through fingers and vanished into circulation again. Maybe the one you need is sitting in your drawer right now. But here's the real twist: not every 1980 penny without a mint mark is valuable. The vast majority are worth only face value. That's where knowledge becomes power. The difference between a 1-cent coin and a $1 million coin comes down to your eyes, and your willingness to look closer. First, study the coin carefully under a magnifying glass. Look at the date. 1980. The edges of the numbers, especially the 0, sometimes show doubling, a sign of a double die error. Next, examine Lincoln's face. On some rare examples, his profile shows slight doubling as well. And finally, check the condition. Collectors go wild for coins in pristine, uncirculated states. That's where the real $1 million value appears. Even in slightly worn condition, though, rare 1980 pennies can bring in thousands. Collectors were shocked to learn just how many of these slipped through unnoticed. Dealers are still rushing to get their hands on them. And every time one appears at auction, bidding wars erupt with the kind of drama usually reserved for fine art or diamonds. But what's even more fascinating is the symbolism. A penny, the smallest coin in American currency, becoming the one worth the most. It's a reminder that sometimes greatness hides in the places we least expect it. Now, here's where your story begins. Tonight, after this video, go grab that old jar of coins. Open the dusty drawer, the shoebox in your closet, the tin in the garage. Hold every 1980 penny up to the light. Because hidden among them could be the coin that transforms your life. The coin no one else saw coming. The coin that turns spare change into $1 million. And when you find it, because someone will, the world will once again be stunned. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it stunned the world by selling for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding an ordinary 2003 Lincoln penny, a coin you'd normally overlook, and discovering it's worth more than a mansion. Most people don't even give a second thought to the change rattling in their pockets. But hidden among those ordinary pennies is one so rare, so extraordinary, it could transform your life overnight. The year was 2003. Cell phones were just beginning to shape the future, and pocket change still mattered for candy bars and gas pumps. But in the middle of that year, something strange happened inside the U.S. Mint. A small, almost invisible mistake slipped through the machinery. A detail overlooked. An error that should never have existed. And that mistake gave birth to one of the most valuable pennies in modern American history. For years, no one noticed. These coins quietly circulated, passed hand to hand in gas stations, grocery stores, vending machines. Parents handed them to kids for school lunches. Clerks tossed them into cash drawers. Most of them were perfectly normal. But buried within that sea of copper-plated zinc, one tiny misprint carried the potential to shock collectors across the globe. And then it happened. A collector, sorting through what looked like everyday change, spotted something odd. At first, he thought it was nothing, a trick of the light, maybe some damage from wear. But the more he looked, the more he realized this was no ordinary penny. This was a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. That single coin would eventually cross the auction block for up to $1.10 million. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. News spread like wildfire through the coin-collecting community. Could there really be a 2003 penny with no mint mark worth millions? How many were still out there, hiding in jars, wallets, and dusty coin rolls? Nobody knew for sure, and that uncertainty only fueled the frenzy. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Experts examined the coin carefully. The missing mint mark wasn't just rubbed away. It wasn't damage. It wasn't wear. It was a true minting error. A failure deep inside the mint itself. A missing mark that transformed a single penny into $1 million miracle. Think about it. Every penny minted in Philadelphia is supposed to be clean of a mint mark, but in some rare cases, strange variations occur. Sometimes a die is altered, sometimes a minting press skips its mark, and sometimes a bizarre combination of errors produces a coin that should never exist. That's exactly what happened here, and the truth is, most people miss it. They toss the coin aside, never realizing what they just let slip through their fingers. Imagine being the person who once paid with that coin for a pack of gum, completely unaware they were holding a fortune. But here's the part that will make you sit up straight. That $1 million penny looks almost identical to the one in your pocket right now. Same year. Same portrait of Lincoln. Same reverse with the Lincoln Memorial. The only difference is that tiny, tiny detail, the missing mint mark. That's it. And yet, that difference changes everything. One man's pocket change became a life-changing payday. And stories like his continue to inspire collectors everywhere. Because if it happened once, it can happen again. The question is, will you be the one who finds the next one? Dealers say coins like this don't just represent money, they represent history. A mistake frozen in time. A tiny accident that turned into a symbol of hope for ordinary people. Every collector dreams of being the one who uncovers the next $1 million surprise. And in 2003, that dream became a reality for someone lucky enough to notice what others ignored. But here's where the mystery deepens. Some experts believe more of these coins could still be out there. Unfound. Unnoticed. Sitting quietly in bank rolls, tucked inside collections, or even hiding in your pocket at this very moment. What makes this story so gripping is not just the coin itself, but the possibility that the next discovery is still waiting. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The absence of a mint mark isn't obvious at first glance. To the casual eye, it looks like any other penny. But when examined closely, you'll notice the difference. It's clean where there should have been a tiny mark. Perfectly blank. And that absence is the secret. That absence is worth over $1 million. The rarest coins aren't the ones made with perfection, they're the ones made with mistakes. And the 2003 no mint mark penny proves it. A minting accident that turned into a once-in-a-generation jackpot. But what happened at auction was even more shocking. When the coin was finally revealed, bidding wars erupted. Collectors and dealers pushed the price higher and higher. No one wanted to miss out on owning this piece of history. And when the final hammer fell, the crowd was left in disbelief. A penny, a single, ordinary-looking penny, had sold for over $1 million. Now imagine this. You go home tonight. You open that jar of coins on your dresser. You start flipping through the pennies you've ignored for years. And there it is. The same year. The same design. But with that crucial missing mint mark. What would you do? Would you sell it immediately? Or would you hold it, knowing you're holding a treasure that could change your life forever? collectors often say that the thrill of coin hunting isn't just about money. It's about history. About holding something no one else noticed. About uncovering a story lost in plain sight. And in the case of the 2003 penny, that story turned into one of the greatest surprises in coin collecting history. 2003. Then look closely at the area just below the year, near Lincoln's portrait. Normally, you'd expect to see a small D or other mint mark, depending on where it was struck. But on this penny, nothing. Perfectly blank. That's your signal. That's your clue, but be careful. Many pennies have worn down over time. Dirt, scratches, or circulation damage can trick the eye. Don't mistake simple wear for the true error. The authentic no mint mark penny is crisp, unmistakable, and officially recognized by grading experts. If you think you've got one, always get it authenticated. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and one worth $1 million comes down to expert confirmation. And here's the part that makes your heart race. That exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when it was finally recognized, it sold for nearly $1 million. And here's the shocking truth: it wasn't some ancient coin dug up from the ground. It wasn't locked away in a museum vault. It was an ordinary Lincoln penny from 2014. The kind of coin you might still have jingling in your pocket right now. How could a coin so recent, so common, and so easily overlooked turn into one of the most expensive pennies in history? The answer lies in a small detail, a mistake so rare and unexpected that it changed everything. Collectors were stunned when it surfaced. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. And one lucky finder, who thought he was holding just another penny, realized he was holding $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. To understand the mystery of the 2014 no mint mark Lincoln penny, we have to go back to the United States Mint itself. By 2014, pennies had been minted for more than a century. They were familiar, boring even, copper-plated zinc coins that people barely noticed anymore. But hidden deep within the machinery of the mint, mistakes happen. And sometimes, those mistakes slip through unnoticed. The 2014 penny should have carried a mint mark, a small letter, either a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco, depending on where it was struck. But a few rare coins were released with no mint mark at all. At first glance, it looks like a regular penny. But look closer. Where there should be a tiny D, there's nothing. Just smooth, empty space. And that tiny omission makes all the difference. This is no ordinary cent. It's a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. But here's where the story takes a shocking twist. When the first of these no mint mark pennies was found, it was almost spent at a convenience store. Someone had tossed it into a handful of change without even looking at it. Imagine, a coin worth over $1 million being used to buy a pack of gum, and yet, that's the reality of rare coins. They hide in plain sight. They move through hands, pockets, and drawers, unrecognized until someone with a sharp eye spots the difference. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. He was no expert, just a casual collector who had a habit of checking his coins at night. And there it was, a 2014 penny with no mint mark. He almost ignored it. But something told him to look twice. That decision changed his life. At auction, the bidding war was fierce. Collectors from around the country, even around the world, competed to own this piece of modern history. The final hammer price? Over $1.2 million. And yet the story doesn't end there, because the question everyone asked was simple: if one exists, could there be more? Could another 2014 no mint mark penny be sitting in a jar, a purse, or a dresser drawer, waiting to be found? Dealers have scoured coin rolls, collectors have pored over their change, and treasure hunters have searched relentlessly. But these coins are incredibly elusive. And here's the secret most people miss. It's not just the missing mint mark that makes it valuable. It's the condition. Coins that have been in circulation for years get scratched, worn down, and damaged. But this particular penny was discovered in nearly flawless condition. That's what sent its value skyrocketing. That's why collectors were willing to pay over $1 million. Could it still be worth a fortune? The answer is yes. Even a lightly worn version of the 2014 no-mint mark penny could bring in tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. These coins aren't locked away in museums. They're still out there, hiding in circulation. Right now, a handful of them could be mixed in with everyday change across the United States. Think about that for a moment. Every time you empty your pockets, every time you crack open a coin roll from the bank, you could be staring at a piece of metal worth $1 million, and not even know it. Collectors were shocked when word spread. Some people laughed at the idea. After all, how could a coin made in 2014, barely a decade old, be worth more than coins from the 1800s? But that's the strange magic of the coin world. It's not always about age. Sometimes it's about mistakes. Rare, tiny, invisible mistakes that slip through the cracks of history. And this mistake is one of the most valuable of all. How can you tell if your 2014 penny is worth millions? What exactly should you be looking for? The first step: check the mint mark. A normal penny from 2014 will have a D or an S below the date. If you see that mint mark, it's just another penny. But if the space is blank, your heart should skip a beat. Because you might be holding one of the rarest coins in modern U.S. history. Condition: use a magnifying glass or take it to a local dealer. If the coin is sharp, shiny, and free of scratches, it could be worth more than you ever imagined. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because once collectors learned about this discovery, demand skyrocketed. Even ordinary 2014 pennies started getting checked more carefully. People who never cared about coins before began digging through their change jars, hoping to strike it rich. One man's discovery had sparked a nationwide treasure hunt. And here's what makes this story truly inspirational. That finder wasn't rich. He wasn't an expert. He was just an ordinary person with an ordinary life, who decided to take a closer look at something most people overlook every single day. And that simple decision turned into over $1 million. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Don't toss it aside. That tiny coin could hold the key to your future, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash. One ordinary Lincoln penny from 1994, overlooked, ignored, and dismissed as pocket change, later shocked the coin world when it sold for nearly $1 million. And here's the twist: it didn't even carry a mint mark. Just a plain-looking penny that most people would never give a second glance. But hidden within this tiny piece of copper lies one of the most mysterious and valuable treasures of modern American coinage. Collectors whisper about it. Dealers hunt for it. And the lucky few who stumble across it? Their lives are changed forever. A man empties his pocket, ready to toss a handful of change into a jar by the door. He hesitates, staring at a single penny. Something feels different. The year reads 1994. There's no mint mark beneath Lincoln's portrait. He shrugs, almost lets it drop, but instead, he holds on to it. That tiny decision would later earn him a fortune, because this was no ordinary penny. The U.S. Mint in 1994 was producing billions of coins. Denver, Philadelphia, San Francisco, the presses roared day and night. But among those billions, a mistake slipped through. A small batch of coins left the presses missing their mint marks, struck with an unusual brilliance, and carrying subtle die variations that only the sharpest eyes could detect. These coins were accidents, but accidents that would turn into miracles. One of these coins crossed the auction block for over $1 million. Yes, a penny, just 1 cent in face value, commanding more than $1 million in cold, hard cash. Collectors gasped. Some couldn't believe it. But the proof was undeniable, sealed in bidding wars that broke records and rewrote the story of the Lincoln cent forever. But what happened next shocked the entire coin world. News spread. Articles surfaced. Suddenly, average Americans were digging through jars, drawers, and coffee cans, praying to find one of these elusive 1994 no-mint mark pennies. Coin shops were flooded. Collectors rushed to authenticate their finds. And stories began to pour in, some true, some exaggerated. A few lucky owners walked away with small fortunes. Others discovered heartbreaking counterfeits, cleverly altered coins designed to trick even seasoned buyers. Most people missed the tiny details. A worn penny with no mint mark isn't automatically valuable. Millions of Lincoln pennies were struck in Philadelphia without mint marks, and those coins are worth almost nothing more than face value. What separates the million-dollar miracle from the ordinary penny is a perfect storm of rarity, condition, and striking anomalies. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The coin must be in near-perfect condition. We're talking sharp lines on Lincoln's beard, crisp edges, and a flawless shine. Collectors call it mint state. The higher the grade, the higher the price. Combine that condition with the mysterious absence of a mint mark, and suddenly, you've got a contender for one of the most valuable modern pennies in history. One dealer recalled the moment he first held one in his hand. It was like electricity, he said. You don't expect a penny to make your hands shake. But this one did. A coin you could mistake for pocket change, one you might spend on a gumball, is secretly worth over $1 million. That's the kind of story that fuels every collector's dream. That's why people search relentlessly, why they never stop looking at their change with hope in their eyes. Another specimen surfaced at a private auction. The bidding was fierce. Hands shot up. Prices climbed. And when the hammer finally fell, the room was silent. The price? Over $1.3 million. A record-breaking sale for a modern penny. Collectors were stunned. Dealers couldn't stop talking. And ordinary Americans began asking the same haunting question. Could I have one of these in my house right now? The truth is, you might. So how do you know if the 1994 no mint mark penny in your hand is the one worth a fortune? First, check the condition. It must look practically brand new, like it just left the mint. Second, study the details under magnification. Are the letters sharp? Is Lincoln's profile crisp? Does the surface gleam with that unmistakable brilliance? Third, consult an expert. If you suspect you've got the right coin, it must be authenticated and graded by professionals. Without that, it's just another penny. Many people mistake ordinary 1994 Philadelphia pennies for the million-dollar variety. Don't be fooled. Most are worth only a cent. But the rare era versions, the ones struck with unique qualities and preserved in pristine condition, those are the life-changing finds. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another collector's discovery shook the market. And right now, somewhere, one more of these pennies may still be hiding. Sitting quietly in a drawer. Resting in a forgotten jar. Waiting to be found. Picture this: you're holding a penny, plain, brown, unremarkable. Then you learn it's worth over $1 million. That's not just money. That's freedom. That's a new house. A new life. A once-in-a-lifetime chance to rewrite your story, all because you looked closely at something most people overlook every single day. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't ignore the pennies. Don't dismiss them as worthless. Look closely. Because the 1994 no mint mark Lincoln penny worth up to $1.3 million could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it might just change your life forever. This coin almost ended up in the trash. An ordinary penny, barely noticed, slipped into a change jar. But years later, when the right eyes finally spotted it, the discovery shocked collectors everywhere. Because this single coin, a simple 1972 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, sold for a staggering amount of money. Not hundreds. Not thousands. But up to $1.4 million. Imagine that for a moment. A coin worth $1 million, hiding in plain sight. The story of how this coin came to be is one of the strangest twists in American coinage. And unless you know the secrets behind it, you could walk right past a fortune without even realizing it. Back in 1972, the U.S. Mint was running its presses harder than ever. Billions of Lincoln pennies poured out into circulation. Most were flawless, everyday coins destined to be spent on coffee, candy, and gas that cost less than 50 cents a gallon. But hidden in that sea of copper were mistakes. Tiny errors in the minting process that, instead of being destroyed, slipped through unnoticed. Collectors today know these mistakes by one haunting name: the 1972 double die. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary penny. But look closer, and you'll see something that changes everything. Lincoln's face, his lettering, his date, all carrying a ghost-like double image. A striking, mysterious doubling that the mint never intended. The first time one of these coins surfaced, it sent shockwaves through the coin community. Dealers couldn't believe it. Ordinary Americans who picked one up in their pocket change were stunned. And slowly, the price began to climb. What started as a curiosity turned into a frenzy, until collectors were paying tens of thousands, and then hundreds of thousands. And now, one in pristine condition, untouched by time, has been valued at up to $1.4 million. But here's the part that most people miss, and this is why you need to listen carefully. There isn't just one type of doubling. In fact, the 1972 double die penny comes in several varieties. Some are worth only a few hundred. Others might fetch a few thousand. But the rarest, the sharpest, the most dramatic examples, those are the life-changing ones. And it all comes down to your eyes. If you hold this coin under the right light, you'll see it. The date 1972 doesn't look normal. The 2 and the 7 seem to have a shadow, almost like they were stamped twice. The word liberty jumps out with doubled letters that look like they're echoing across the surface. And the phrase "In God we trust"? That's where the doubling screams the loudest. Bold, clear, unmistakable. Collectors who spot this instantly know they've found something extraordinary. Dealers are rushing to grab every one they can. And people who thought they just had an old penny suddenly realize they're holding a miracle worth more than a house. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. As word spread, people began tearing through jars of pennies, searching every pocket, every drawer, every old coffee can filled with change. Families who never thought about coins before were suddenly glued to magnifying glasses. Pawn shops overflowed with hopeful sellers. And every time a new 1972 double die surfaced, the value climbed higher. One man claimed he almost spent his at a gas station. Another collector swore he found his in a handful of change from a diner. And one legendary story tells of a man who bought a roll of pennies at the bank, only to find not one, but two of these $1 million mistakes inside. Think about that. A $1 million discovery for just 50 cents. And yet here's the truth that makes this even more thrilling. Most people still don't know what they're looking for. They glance at a penny, see nothing unusual, and toss it aside. But the detail is there. Waiting. Hiding. Just one faint doubling away from turning ordinary change into extraordinary fortune. Collectors were shocked when one pristine specimen appeared at auction. The bids didn't crawl, they exploded. One after another, bidders raised their paddles, determined not to let this treasure slip away. The final hammer price stunned the audience. $1.4 million for a coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. And this isn't just history. These coins are still out there. Every day, pennies from the 1970s change hands at grocery stores, vending machines, and yard sales. Somewhere, tucked into a dusty jar or hidden in a forgotten drawer, could be the next $1 million discovery. But here's the warning, and it's a big one. Not every coin with doubling is genuine. Some are just the result of worn dies or damage from circulation. Collectors call these machine doubling. And while it may look similar to the untrained eye, it's worth nothing. That's why you need to study the real thing. On the genuine 1972 double die, the doubling is bold, clean, and spread across the entire design. Anything less, and you might just have an ordinary penny. So what should you do if you think you've found one? First, never clean the coin. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Second, keep it safe. Third, get it professionally graded by a trusted service like PCGS or NGC. The difference between a coin worth a few hundred and a coin worth $1 million often comes down to condition. Scratches, dents, even fingerprints can cost you dearly. And remember, these coins don't shout their value. They whisper it. A faint shadow on a number. A ghostly doubling of a word. The tiniest detail could mean the difference between 1 cent and $1.4 million. That's the beauty of coin collecting. It's a treasure hunt where the prize isn't buried in the ground, it's hiding in your own home. And every time you pick up a penny, you're holding history in your hand. Some are ordinary. But one, just one, could change your life forever. So tonight, after this video ends, grab that jar of change sitting on your dresser. Pour it out. Look carefully. Because somewhere in that pile of copper might be the coin that turns your story into the next great discovery. The 1972 no mint mark Lincoln penny, with the dramatic doubled die, has shocked collectors, stunned dealers, and transformed ordinary people into millionaires overnight. And here's the truth you can't ignore. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when the truth came out, it was worth nearly $1.5 million. A simple penny. A coin you've probably ignored hundreds of times. And yet, this tiny piece of copper could change someone's life forever. The year was 2001. America had just stepped into a new millennium. Cell phones were still chunky, and most people barely noticed the change in their pockets. The Lincoln penny was everywhere. Billions were minted. It was the most ordinary, everyday coin you could imagine. But deep inside the machinery of the US Mint, something went terribly wrong. A mistake so rare, so nearly impossible, that it turned one ordinary penny into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Collectors still whisper about it. The 2001 no mint mark Lincoln penny. A coin born from an error, hidden in plain sight, traveling through wallets, jars, and cash registers, until one man's curiosity uncovered its secret. At first glance, it looks just like any other penny. The familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. The copper sheen. The date 2001 staring back at you. Nothing special. But look closer. Something is missing. Something that should be there. And that tiny absence, that missing mint mark, is the reason this coin stunned the entire collecting world. The United States Mint has always marked its coins with tiny letters, a D for Denver, a P for Philadelphia, an S for San Francisco. It's the fingerprint of a coin, its birthplace, its identity. But every once in a great while, a mistake slips through. A coin is struck without its mint mark. It is born anonymous. And when that happens, collectors go wild. One such penny, a 2001 with no mint mark, surfaced quietly at first. A man sorting through a jar of change spotted something odd. He held it to the light, rubbed it between his fingers, squinted. Wait, where's the mint mark? He thought it was a trick of the eye, maybe just wear and tear. But when experts examined it, their jaws dropped. This wasn't just a damaged coin. This was an authentic mint error. A coin so rare that its value didn't just climb, it exploded. At auction, the bidding war was fierce. Dealers flew in, collectors raised their paddles, the room buzzed with tension. Everyone knew this was no ordinary find. When the gavel finally slammed down, the price tag left the room in shock. 1 cent had just sold for nearly $1.5 million. But the story doesn't end there. Because once that sale made headlines, the coin world went into a frenzy. People tore through their penny jars. They raided piggy banks, searched couch cushions, and cracked open rolls from the bank. Everyone was asking the same question: could they be the next lucky one to find this $1 million miracle? And here's the haunting part. Experts believe there are still more out there. Coins that slipped unnoticed into circulation. Coins sitting quietly in drawers and jars across America, just waiting for someone with sharp eyes to notice what's missing. It isn't just a missing mint mark. It's the combination of rarity, timing, and condition. You see, most of the 2001 pennies were struck in the billions, churned out by machines at lightning speed. But somewhere in that massive production run, a few escaped the stamping process without their mint mark. It was a freak accident. A ghost in the machine. And because collectors crave what they can have, those few survivors became priceless. Now here's where it gets even more fascinating. Many people mistake damaged coins for rare ones. A scratched-off mint mark, a worn surface, or dirt that hides the letter. But true no mint mark errors are different. The surface is clean. Smooth. Perfect. As if the mark was never there at all. That's what separates a penny worth 1 cent from a penny worth over $1 million. Collectors were shocked when the news broke. Dealers rushed to get their hands on any 2001 penny that looked unusual. Prices soared overnight. And suddenly, this everyday coin became a symbol of hope. A reminder that life-changing treasures can hide in the most ordinary places. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Another example surfaced. This time, in the hands of a young man who almost spent it at a gas station. He had no idea what he was holding. He nearly dropped it in the "leave a penny, take a penny" tray. But something told him to look closer. And when he did, he realized he was staring at a fortune in his palm. Imagine that moment. You're holding a single coin, just a penny, but it's worth enough to pay off your mortgage, send your kids to college, or buy the car of your dreams. That's the power of this discovery. So how do you know if you've got one? It's simple, but it requires a sharp eye. First, grab any 2001 Lincoln pennies you have. Hold them under a bright light. Look directly beneath the date. That's where the mint mark should be. If you see a D, it came from Denver. If you see nothing at all, keep looking closer. Is it worn down? Or is it truly absent? If the surface is clean, smooth, and never stamped, you may just have something extraordinary. But don't rush to conclusions. Many hopefuls mistake ordinary wear for rarity. That's why authentication is key. Professional grading services can confirm whether your coin is the real deal. And if it is, the sky is the limit. Think about this for a moment. Somewhere in America, a coin that cost 1 cent to make is now worth over $1 million. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And it could happen again. So before you spend your pennies, check them. Examine every detail. Because history has proven time and again, the smallest things can carry the biggest rewards. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.